Prayer.
Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness has appointed the offices of leaders and parliament for the welfare of society, good of all human lives upon it, and the just government of its people, we beseech you to look with your abundant favor upon us, your servants, whom you have entrusted with the performance of such important trust in this community. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our attention and deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and the welfare of this region and of those whose interests you have committed to us. Amen.
Item number 1 on the order paper, communication from the chair. Item number 2 on the order paper, papers. Bullet 1.
Chairperson, Committee on Regional Affairs, Honorable Mini. Honorable Mike Sevalo standing in.
Right, Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the committee report.
Thank you, Honorable.
Right, Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay a committee report, a report of Yala Committee on Regional Affairs and Conflict Resolution on the public hearing on the complaints raised in a motion for the Peace and Security Department at the ESC Secretariat under the African Peace and Security Architecture APSA program.
Thank you, Honorable Mike Sevalo.
Item 2 on the order paper, papers, bullet 2.
Honorable members, I will use my prerogative to adjust the order paper a bit due to some technical problem of the photocopying machines which we are using have broken down. The one which is working is taking a bit of time. So we give time for the report to be generated, and then we will move to order number 5 in the interest of time. But we will proceed, Honorable Chair, after that.
Item number 5 on order paper, private members bill, motion.
Honorable Shairos.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Speaker. I beg to move a motion seeking leave to introduce a private member's bill titled the EAC Protection of Persons with Albinism of 2017. Mheshimiwa Speaker, I beg to move.
Seconders, Honorable Mariam, Honorable Dr. Ndairo, Honorable Sebalo, and all the members standing. Honorable Shairos, proceed and justify your motion.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Speaker. I will begin with the memorandum. Mheshimiwa Speaker, the East African Community Protection of People with Albinism of 2017 memorandum. The object of this bill is to introduce, I beg your pardon. The object of this bill is to prohibit the discrimination against people suffering with albinism and to ensure affirmative action in their favor. It also stipulates the sanctions against those who indulge in suffocating the rights of persons with albinism. Mheshimiwa Speaker, before I begin to justify my motion, please allow me to take this opportunity to welcome 3 honorable members I beg your pardon, Mheshimiwa Speaker. Mheshimiwa Speaker, I stand here in defense of people with albinism. Let me raise my voice to the public concern on the growing danger that is facing people with albinism in some parts of East Africa. Mheshimiwa Speaker, people with albinism are being killed, maimed, or even discriminated against as if they are not human beings like us. Mheshimiwa Speaker, in the holy books of Quran and Bible, it clearly says, "Thou shalt not kill." But in some parts of East Africa, we have seen that this crime of killing our brothers and sisters is being committed for selfish gains. Mheshimiwa Speaker, these killings are as a result of negative beliefs that people will get fortune, good luck, and some also believe they will be able to get leadership and political positions in our society. Mheshimiwa Speaker, this is the age of science and technology, and all of us must embrace to the issues of development. Instead of going forward, we are going backwards by having negative beliefs of superstition and witchcraft. And I say that these kind of vices and beliefs should have no place or room in today's world. Mheshimiwa Speaker, commodification of PWAs or their body parts should not only be condemned in the strongest terms possible, but be treated as criminal offenses, as any other vice, to be met with deterrent punishment. Mheshimiwa Speaker, another problem that is facing our brothers and sisters with albinism is the issue of stigma. This is a continuous problem, especially to those born with albinism, because apparently it symbolizes bad luck and therefore cannot afford a similar social opportunity. To make things worse, Mheshimiwa Speaker, at this age of science and technology, as I had put it before, where superstition cannot be spared any room, that is why, Mheshimiwa Speaker, I came up with this motion to seek for support from this august House so that we can come up with a very good bill that will teach a lesson to all those who are responsible in the killings of our brothers and sisters, and also to those who are practicing stigma and discrimination to people with albinism. But not only that, Mheshimiwa Speaker, we need to put in place or propagate for affirmative actions for our brothers and sisters with albinism. Mheshimiwa Speaker, in this motion for this bill, it will aim to make certain and without any single doubt that human rights of PWAs are upheld by everyone and by all the partner states, not as a favor, but as part of our today's civilization. Mheshimiwa Speaker, also, this bill aims to criminalize any action that intends to dehumanize, discriminate, or mistreat people with albinism, as these are human beings like you and me. Mheshimiwa Speaker, any commodification of PWA's body parts should be treated as a criminal offense. Mheshimiwa Speaker, we need to normalize the lives of people with albinism to the best extent possible. And that is why, again, this motion is seeking for your support. Mheshimiwa Speaker, if I can quickly read about just three more aims of this motion seeking leave. To promote dignity and equal opportunities for persons with albinism, to develop and promote participation of people with albinism in all aspects of life as equal citizens of EAC partner states, to promote affirmative action for PWAs, and to eliminate all forms of discrimination of people with albinism on grounds of their disabilities. Mheshimiwa Speaker, I would like to end by saying stigma is a bad concept. Discrimination is a bad social behavior, and to kill is a criminal. Is a crime, I beg your pardon. Mheshimiwa Speaker, it is my sincere conviction when this House will grant me leave, the bill on albinism will safeguard many lives of PWAs which are now endangered by those who are seeking for opportunities. Mheshimiwa Speaker, I beg to move. Mheshimiwa Speaker, I submit.
Thank you, Honorable Shairos. Honorable members, the motion before the Assembly is that this Assembly, pursuant to the provision of Article 59(1) of the Treaty and Rule 64(1) of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly, do grant leave to Honorable Shairos Banji to introduce a private member's bill entitled the East African Community Protection of People with Albinism Bill 2017. Debate is open. Maybe before we go into the debate, honorable members, allow me to recognize our special guests from the National Parliament of the United Republic of Tanzania. We have members of Parliament. I'll start with the Honorable George Mkuchika, who is a member of Parliament from Newala constituency. I have Honorable Sada Mkuya from Welezo constituency, Zanzibar. I have Honorable Cecilia Pareso, Member of Parliament, special seat Honorable members, you're most welcome, and thank you for showing interest in our business and the regional integration. Honorable Sebalo.
Thank you very much. Right Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this bill, the East African Community Protection of Peoples with Albinism Bill 2017, as moved by Honorable Shairos Banji. I associate myself with this cause. But through you, Right Honorable Speaker, I also add my voice to yours in welcoming our East African colleagues who happen to serve in the National Parliament of the United Republic of Tanzania. When we do our business in the presence of those that give us the mandate to do so, it is good time for accountability and be sure that we are doing a good job. And our colleagues from Tanzania are very exemplary in the manner in which they execute the mandate that you granted them to represent you and the people of East Africa. And for that, they deserve a good gesture of goodwill at the right time. Right Honorable Speaker, the EAC that we serve did change, and it came up with a new paradigm shift where we put a lot of focus on the issues to do with the people. And that's why it is people-centered, private sector-led, and market-driven. So that brings the question of who are the people? The people are what makes the total body of humanity within the geographical expression called East Africa. All human beings enjoy the same value and are important for this region. Because when we talk about integrating this region, we are not talking about integrating countries and boundaries. We are talking about integrating the people. And that's why it is a community of people of all kinds of background and nature. So when we talk about the people, it is incumbent on us as leaders to offer leadership in all aspects of life. Leadership is not only offered to those in the political domain. We need to give leadership, and in giving leadership, we are giving guidance, we are giving focus, and we are members of parliament from different backgrounds. So we need to use our expertise, our experience, our exposure to bring to ensure that we make a collective contribution that has the effect of enhancing the welfare of all the people. So I'd like to thank Honorable Shairos for having seen it fit to bring this motion. Because what happens to any East African, anywhere in East Africa, should be concerned to all of us. Because it has the effect of watering down our zeal and our spirit of ensuring that our people enjoy their welfare to the fullest. The East African community should be seen as a mirror, a reflection of all categories of people that happen to be in this part of the world. We need, therefore, to create the enabling environment for all our citizens to enjoy full rights of their existence in this region. All categories of our people should be accommodated. Therefore, we need to enhance the fact that we are a community that is rule-based and we need to promote the rule of law. The acts that have been mentioned in the bill that have occasioned Honorable Shairos Banji to move the bill are very well known to us. You know, criminal activities where people with albinism are sacrificed in ritual sacrifices. Those are very unlawful acts and they should not go unpunished. Stigmatization is not something we should accommodate because no one chooses to be what he is. It is an act of God and we should appreciate everyone as a reflection of humanity. So stigmatization is a practice that should not be tolerated, should be discouraged, and it should be punished. Discrimination has no room in modern society, and we should be the last to condone such acts in our region. So, Right Honorable Speaker, this is a very well-intentioned bill. It is very timely, very necessary, very desirable, and I beg that we support it so that the mover is given opportunity to go ahead and we enact this bill so that all our people, all our East Africans will appreciate the existence of a parliament that is very sensitive and that responds to the needs and unique situations that our people find themselves in. With those observations, I do support the bill and the motion to grant Honorable Shairos leave to move the bill. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to submit.
Thank you, Honorable Mike Sebalo. Honorable Dr. Ndairo.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Let me also thank Honorable Shairos Bangi for introducing this bill and communicate to the National Parliament of the United Republic of Tanzania that you sent us an able member and I hope you are going to send her back. Because...
Honorable Dr. Ndairo, I hope you say Honorable Shairos Banji.
Banji. I'm sorry, I withdraw, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, humanity is a complex phenomenon. We've been receiving prayers. We've been taught by different able people for generations. We have Christianity dating back to more thousand years back. We have holy books like the Bible and the Quran. They all have the same teachings. Respect for humanity. But that aside, the societies have only managed to live because of one thing, which is the rule of law. Without the rule of law, human beings are animals. Without rule of law, human beings are destructive. Most especially in backward communities, whereby poverty and other problems have existed for so many years. It is a question of telling one that Because James is blind, if you eat him, you will be rich, then tomorrow you will disappear. That's how backward we are. That is how backward our societies are. Seeking for legal framework to protect humanity is a noble goal, Honorable Speaker, honorable members. I think we all have a duty to protect each other, to protect our communities, and to protect especially those people who are challenged in one way or the other. Honorable Speaker, backwardness is a vice that requires us to work together and change the mindsets of our people. We cannot develop, we cannot coexist, we cannot formulate plans or visions that are inclusive. It is difficult to attain the development goals we all set up. You know very well that each partner state has a development plan, and in those development plans, the first priority is eradicating poverty. You cannot eradicate poverty in a situation or in communities where people still have a mindset that you could compare it with the animal ones. Development begins with our minds. You can hardly develop if only what you know is destroying humanity, is believing that your fortunes will come because you have sacrificed humanity or you have misbehaved in one way or the other. No wonder 50 years have passed after we attained independence, and we are still as poor as we were then. We need to change our mindsets. But this will not be brought by faith, by the Bible, or by the Quran only. We need, as legislators, to legislate and encourage governments to enact friendly policies that will promote human values and will also help each individual to attain his level that one could attain. It is important, honorable members, to appreciate that the East African community has very good aspirations, but those aspirations can only be meaningful if there is a sense of humanity, if there is a sense of respect, if there is a sense of a development agenda that goes beyond our cultural practices and traditions that are backward in nature. Culture is good. It makes people coexist, it makes people progress, but we have to be careful to eradicate those practices that can take us backwards. This should be a collaborative effort. As members of parliament, we can play our part, but that will not resolve the problem. The government will play their part. That will not resolve the problem. The problem will be resolved only when we all put together in a collaborative manner. Priests, sheikhs, policemen, all security organs and civil society organizations, to make sure that human value is respected and people with albinism are supported and protected. I think we should not stop at legislating only. We should also advocate those people with communication abilities, like the telecom companies and others, should help us establish lines, special lines that people can use to call for protection when attacked. You know, most people with albinism are also poor, and they live in utter poverty. It is difficult for them to own even a phone. So we should not only stop at legislating, we should also advocate and make sure that we extend instruments of protection to these people. Right, Honorable Speaker, I want to end by this. EAC has a treaty, and it is a constitution. In order to respect this constitution, our national governments should take the center stage to establish structures at the national level. Structures that people, not only with albinism, but people under threat, people who fear for their lives, can reach either specialized centers or units where people can go and seek for refuge. So that when people in the remotest village of our community have a problem, they have somewhere to run to, where there are people who are specialized, who understand, who can give them time. Otherwise, we will find that the current structures in our community are not focused really to receive such problems. Most of them are overwhelmed with the other things. Yes, this is also a criminal offense, but criminality is ranked. It is easier for a policeman to run after a thief than receiving a complaint from a person with albinism. So that needs also to be accessible. We need to do more than we are currently doing, and I think if we, as I said before, in a collaborative manner, work together, I think we can defeat this vice. And in conclusion, I would like to request all members really to support this bill and to grant Honorable Shairoz Banji to grant her leave to introduce this bill. It is timely, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will pick Honorable Patricia.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I also want to support the motion to support Honorable Shairoz Banji to introduce this important bill. And particularly, I want to tell my story. When I was young, very young, I went to boarding school in primary 5. And arriving at that school, there were about 5 children with albinism. The school I went to was Nani's school, and they really provided for them and gave them a lot of support. Luckily enough, one of them managed to go through exams and passed the exams, and we went together at the same school, in the secondary school, in Mbeya, those who know Tanzania, in a school called Loreza Secondary School. In that school, she was the only one. And as we arrived, other kids were afraid, were some kind of scared, but they were looking at me because I was always with her, wherever we went. And they used to say, what's wrong with Patricia? How can she be moving with that girl? So somehow both of the two of us, we became like discriminated. Until it took time, the teachers talked to the school children. They had to have a whole assembly to educate the children that this child is normal like all of us. I'm testifying this because in one of the issues which I wanted to ask Honorable Shairos as we develop this important bill is to look at a number of issues. The issue of awareness raising. I think people take it for granted that people will simply understand. But we need to educate the population, and especially at small age, when people are very young, so that they grow up understanding the aspects of humanity, and that people are different. And being different is not a crime or a sin. It's important to do that, Right Honorable Speaker. This lady I'm telling you went all the way to the university. She's a graduate, she's working, and she's married with 4 children. Wherever I go to Dar es Salaam, I visit her, and she has been to Kigali to visit me with her husband. And her husband is not an albinism. And because people thought these people would only marry among themselves. But that is true. There are people who understand, there are people like us, and they should be respected. Right Honorable Speaker, the other aspect which I would like to ask if it can be included is to look at the aspects of affirmative action. The aspect of affirmative action in terms of about 3 areas. One is education, to make sure they are supported to go to school. Because most of the families which are very poor, they cannot manage because their education requires a little bit more demand in terms of their health. Their eyes, they need to be to protect their eyes. They require certain type of cream. They need to protect their head. So they require a number of issues. So they need to have, we need to have affirmative action on their education and take care of them and give. After all, there are not so many in our society. So there are not so many that the governments cannot afford that. That's one. The second is the aspect of employment. While we go for interviews, as much as we assume that everybody has a right when we go to do interview and employment, we still have that, people still have that stigma of getting scared even to move forward to look for employment, or even when they go there, comparing one and the other, they will always pick the one without that kind of disability. So I would urge that our government also looks at the aspects of affirmative action in terms of providing the employment so that they can be able to take care of themselves, and but also to take care of their colleagues whom they will understand better than some of us who don't sometimes not sensitized enough to understand of their plight. Right Honorable Speaker, I think those are the 3 aspects of affirmative action to develop programs to help them in the society, those who cannot go beyond education, go into normal education, to support them to go to school, and to support them to get employment wherever they are. With those remarks, Right Honorable Speaker, I support the motion to grant Honorable Shairos Banji the leave.
Thank you so much, Honorable Patricia. Honorable Ogle. Honorable members, I'll give you the floor to speak. No mind. Microphone.
The fact that a legislation is required to protect people with albinism, amongst other things, is an indictment to our very essence as human beings, as Africans and as human beings. Now, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy to be an African, honestly. I'll give you two incidents. One, after so many years, and we are told we are the first species of mankind in this world, after living so many centuries, the African to this day find themselves incite passions about my ethnic community or kill others for me to survive. That is the tragedy of being an African. On governance. On matters urbanization, for instance, as Mr. Leons will tell you, we appear to have capital cities, big cities and something, but that is nothing more than big villages. We really don't know how to manage our cities. There are manholes, there are shortage of water, everything, virtually everything wrong. So we don't know whether the African actually belong to live in cities. We needed to live somewhere in the bush, maybe with the wildlife. Now, the tragedy related to this matter is this. Now, an African wants to run for a political office. You want to get some promotion somewhere. Instead of depending on your hard work, on your capacity, on your ability, you are told you must invoke this primitive nonsense of going to kill a person with albinism so as you can be some MP, just an MP for God's sake? Just an MP, you go kill a fellow human being? It is so tragic. It is very, very tragic. Unfortunately, we require some piece of legislation to protect the very few, the vulnerable amongst our people. Now, that is the tragedy of being an African. But I think we need to give a lift so as we develop this bill properly and see the details of this thing. I support. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Zain.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. First, I'd like to thank Honorable Shairos Banji for coming to this house to seek leave to bring a law that is not only necessary, but is late. Allow me, Honorable Speaker, to make reference to some of the views that other honorable members have made reference to, and I thank them and I associate myself with their views. But first, let me deal with the question of that the majority of people living with albinism are poor. That reality speaks to a much more fundamental question of value. Where there is injustice, you will also find poverty. Where there is exclusion, you will also see poverty. Where there is discrimination, you will also see poverty. What we are saying, fundamentally, we have to choose as a community and ask ourselves a very basic question. On what values will this community be built on? The treaty makes references to some of these values in Article 6D and Article 7.2. And among other things that they talk about in those two places, we talk about democracy, the rule of law, constitutionalism, respect of human rights. This may remain platitudes if we don't seek to find ways and means to mainstream them in our own lives. Therefore, I applaud the efforts of Honorable Shairos Banji to provide for a legislative framework that will outlaw completely the idea that you can target a group of people because of the pigmentation of their skin. And that reminds us of the great poet in Germany who at one point reminded us of our duty and moral obligation. And he said, every time you see people being targeted because of their skin, because of their faith, because of their identity, because of their gender, because of how they look, and you think you are not going to be among those who will face the same fate, then you are mistaken. If you think that it is okay to target people who are with albinism for discrimination, for extermination, a time will come, your time will also be there. So when we are protecting our brothers and sisters who live with albinism, we are also protecting ourselves. We are rejecting the ideology that you can exterminate people because of how they look, because of their faith, because of their ethnicity. So this community must reject this ideology. In fact, we must call it by its name. The targeting of persons with albinism for discrimination and extermination is a crime against humanity. We who believe in justice must stand up to be counted. And I'm glad in the gallery we have distinguished members from the beloved Republic of Tanzania, from Dodoma. We must send a message. We must send a message to all partner states that what we are about to do here must be implemented in partner states, must be embraced in partner states. Allow me to make a final submission. And I know sometimes we'll stand to be considered to be nostalgic because of what I'm about to say. We have but 4 months before the end of the tenure of the Third Assembly. And sir, I am not one of those who believe that we should be blowing our own trumpet. But for this little moment, allow me to reflect that this house, among other things, it shall be remembered that it stood by the people of East Africa by championing the rights of East Africans, by championing the rights of children, by championing the rights of youth, by championing the rights of women, by championing the rights of persons with disability, by championing the rights of all the members of society, and by championing the idea that this community shall be based on values, the very best in humankind, that which calls us calls us first and foremost to establish justice in our community. I submit, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Zain. I come to Honorable Mariam, then Honorable Valerie.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. My contribution is just very brief. First, let me also take this opportunity to welcome our members from United Republic of Tanzania. We are honored to have them here today. Right Honorable Speaker, let me congratulate Honorable Shairos for starting the journey of this very noble bill. Mine is on last page, page 5, on number 7, which talks about sanctions. Right Honorable Speaker, in East Africa, this one is saying, and number 2, I refer for more clarity, any person who commit an offense amounting to capital offense against a persons with albinism shall be tried and punished under the law governing the capital offense so committed. Right Honorable Speaker, in this will fall under criminal law, but in all our partner states, I don't think we have similar laws.
Honorable Mariam, just a point of guidance. You know, we are not discussing the
I
content.
know.
So let's concentrate on the request for the leave and debating the spirit of this law supposed to be brought, not the content of the law at this point.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I thank you for guidance. I was just saying this to her because I know that she's asking for leave and she will go and develop this bill. So when it comes to sanction, she should at least put more sanctions that are similar in all partner states, more harsher than other partner states. That's why I was giving her on the section of sanction. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I support the motion.
Honorable Valerie.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this motion. And from the onset, let me sincerely thank Honorable Shairos for coming up with this important bill. I remember when we were in Zanzibar, she brought a motion, a very important motion, urging the Assembly to urge the member states, the EAC partner states, to protect people with albinism. Once again, we supported her because the motion was adding value. The motion contained very important resolutions which, if they are taken care of, if they are dealt with, if they are given weight by EAC partner states, these people of albinism can also be given due consideration, like other people. And before I leave that point, I would urge or advise my good sister, Honorable Shairos, to look into the same motion and borrow few elements from it, especially elements that came in forms of amendment, and integrate them in this very bill so that it can be complete and harnessed. Number 2, Right Honorable Speaker, East African community, we all know, that is a community which is people-centered. The people-centeredness principle, as enshrined in the treaty, has to be respected. Whatever the East African community, meaning our partner states, our people, our leaders do, is aimed at uplifting the lives of all the citizens of East Africa without exclusion. People with albinism are people like all of us, and they have to enjoy their full and potential rights. The most important of those rights being the right to life. Right Honorable Speaker, like my sister Honorable Patricia alluded to it, I also happen to have a friend and a classmate, a former classmate, who is also a person with albinism. She's wonderful. She's a wonderful lady. I don't even know how to describe her. But whenever it comes to go and visit their community, dear colleagues, when I look at people with albinism, I see in them dedication. I see pride in them, and I see ability in them. Most of them are actually self-employed. They are self-employed, and they are actually members of the private sector, and they are contributing meaningfully to the integration process. So they should be protected, be given space for them to make or to enjoy their right, but also to participate meaningfully and actively to this integration process we are always preaching. Right Honorable Speaker, yes, our community is governed by some cultural values, but I think we have to map out the positive cultural values that allow the East African community as a bloc to become prosperous. Not all the cultural values are good. Not all the cultural values are development-oriented. So we should really make a choice, and a good one, and choose the values that allow our bloc to become prosperous, to become competitive in the whole world. So if some people are discriminated against, if some people are being sacrificed just for the sake of it, for some people just to fulfill their aspirations and to pretend to be getting some powers from human beings, this is a shame. We should not allow that. And when we were considering the bill, the anti-trafficking in person bill, we were also told, when we were doing public hearings, that this group is subject to human trafficking. No way. We should not allow that people become tradable goods. They cannot be considered as tradable goods. So the way you have put it in the bill on anti-trafficking, we have also to emphasize the same aspect in this bill on protection of people with albinism. So, Right Honorable Speaker, I think I will not dwell much on this. I thank my good sister and friend Honorable Shairoz Manji, the way I thanked you in Zanzibar when we came up with this motion. Now that you have translated it into a bill, because we are normally legislate in order for us to cure a mischief, this is a very noble idea. This is a gift we should really give the people with albinism and the entire East Africans. I thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, and I support.
Thank you so much, honorable members. Let me give Honorable Taslima as the last person, then I come to Shairoz to summarize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to thank Honorable Shairoz, and I support the motion. Mr. Speaker, especially in Tanzania, in most of the parts of East Africa, but especially in Tanzania, there have been a lot of cries, there have been a lot of killings, maimings, and all these other things, ugly, because some people have been born with albinism. I have a nephew. That nephew has given birth to 3 children with albinism. And it has been a difficult task for her and her husband to bring them up, because the people with albinism require a special care, especially when they're exposed to the sun, the tropical sun that we have in East Africa. We have brought them up with difficulty, and now they have grown up. What a pain to such experience, to understand that there are people looking for them, to maim them, to kill them, just because of their misguided beliefs. So it's very much paining. It's very much demoralizing having given birth to such a person. And then, in that case, we need some protection, legal protection of this kind, of this law. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I think I shouldn't take long. This is the right way of doing it, and I support it very much, and I'll go along having to support it up to the end. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honorable Taslima. I know there are many members who would have loved to contribute on this motion. Honorable Mulunya, Honorable Angela, they have all indicated, but in the interest of time, we will debate when the real bill is on the floor. So, Honorable Shairos, please, can you respond and we dispose of this?
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Speaker. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely express my appreciation to you and your office to enable me come up with this important motion for seeking leave. Thank you, Mheshimiwa Speaker. Mheshimiwa Speaker, please allow me also to thank honorable members of this August House for their very solid and rich and very valuable contributions to this important motion for the bill on albinism. Mheshimiwa Speaker, I promise this August House that all the contributions will be accommodated in my first reading. Thank you, colleagues. Mheshimiwa Speaker, please now allow me to recognize honorable members who contributed to this motion. Mheshimiwa Mike Sebalu, Mheshimiwa James Ndahiro, Mheshimiwa Patricia Hajabakiga, Mheshimiwa Patricia, I thank you so much. All affirmative actions will be included in the bill. Mheshimiwa Abubakar Ogle, my brother Mheshimiwa Abubakar Zain, Mheshimiwa Mariam Usi, Mheshimiwa Valerie Nyirehabineza, Mheshimiwa Twaha Taslima. Mheshimiwa Speaker, I would also, last but not least, would like to take this opportunity to thank Mheshimiwa Dr. Abdallah Posi from Tanzania. He's the former minister for the former Minister of State in the Prime Minister's office, who was responsible for disability. His inputs on the issue of albinism were very insightful and very helpful. I thank him so much. Mheshimiwa Speaker, asanteni sana.
Thank you, Honorable Shairos. Honorable members, the motion before this House is that this Assembly, pursuant to provision of Article 59(1) and of the Treaty of the 59(1) of the Treaty and Rule 64(1) of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly do grant leave to Honorable Shairos Manji to introduce a private member's bill entitled the East African Community Protection of People with Albinism Bill 2017. May those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against nay. The ayes have it. We now go back to our order paper as clerk.
Item number 2 on order paper, papers bullet 2.
Honorable Mukasabide.
Right Honourable Speaker, the report of the Committee on Communications, Trade and Investment on the petition seeking the amendment of the 5th schedule of the ESC Customs Management Act to include vehicles, spares, and equipment used for motorcycle racing and karting. I beg to lay.
Thank you, Honorable Mukasabide, Chair, Committee on Communication, Trade and Investment.
Item number 3 on order paper, report of the Committee on Regional Affairs and Conflict Resolution on the public hearing on the complaints raised in a motion for the Peace and Security Department at the ASC Secretariat under the African Peace and Security Architecture APSA program. Motion.
I don't know whether the Honorable Sevalo, please proceed.
Thank you very much. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House considers and adopts a report on the Yala Committee on Regional Affairs and Conflict Resolution on the public hearing on the complaints raised in a motion for the Peace and Security Department at the ESC Secretariat under the African Union Peace and Security Architecture APSA program. I beg to move.
Seconders? Honorable Mwinyi, Honorable Kalinda, and Honorable Jean Mary, and all the members standing. Honorable Sebal, proceed.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. On the onset, I'd like to state that I'm standing in for the chair who competently and ably oversaw the entire process, but he's unwell and he was not in position to engage this exercise. So I'm proceeding on the basis that I'm representing the chair and the committee to share the report and the findings of the committee. Right Honorable Speaker, the introduction at its 136th sitting held on the 23rd August 2016 in Arusha, Tanzania, the Assembly adopted a resolution that required investigations on serious allegations concerning bad governance in the East African Community Secretariat. Specifically, the resolution called for investigations into the tendering process of insurance cover for members of staff and the Assembly, and the termination and attempt to terminate the contracts of staff of ESC, Africa Peace and Security Architecture APSA program. The Right Honorable Speaker referred the matter of the APSA program to the Committee on Regional Affairs and Conflict Resolution. He directed the committee to expeditiously investigate the allegations and report to the House. And this is the report of the committee following the directives of the Right Honorable Speaker to that effect. Background. The ESC APSA structures are part and parcel of the African Union Peace and Security Framework And for details, I call upon honorable members to look at Annexure 11, A, B, and C. 3, the African Union came into being following the successful conclusion of the Organization of African Unity, OAU, mandate. The heads of state then, having successfully completed the role of liberating the continent and the dismantling of apartheid, shifted their focus to peace and security and the development of the continent. In their meeting held in 2002 in Durban, the heads of state then changed the name from OAU to AU. A number of important things happened. The heads of state did away with the former constitution that was binding them as OAU and adopted a constitutive act, which was the guiding instrument of the AU. 4, the Constitutive Act, an equivalent of the EAC Treaty, sets out promotion of peace, security, and stability in Africa as one of its major objectives. It was on this basis that the heads of state adopted the establishment of AU Peace and Security Protocol in 2002, from where the African Peace and Security Architecture derives its mandate. The heads of state further established the AU Peace and Security Council. 5, the AU Peace and Security Council is a standing organ made up of 15 member states, elected every 3 years. All the EAC partner states have had an opportunity to serve on it. EAC has the biggest number of representation at the moment. 6, it's important to note that APSA derives its mandate directly from the heads of state under the AU Peace and Security Protocol, as adopted by the Peace and Security Council and the heads of state, to facilitate operationalization of peace and security issues in the continent. 7, following consensus, the heads of state further established and adopted 8 AU-recognized regional economic communities as pillars of peace and security to the AU. The 8 recognized AU RECs include the Community of Sahel, Saharan states, the Common Market of Eastern and Southern Africa states, COMESA, the East African Community, EAC, the Economic Community for Central African States, ECOS, the Economic Community for West African States, ECOWAS, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, the Southern African Development Corporation, SADC, and the Arab Maghreb Union, UM. 8, the APSA encourages all the 8 RECs to have the Peace and Security Councils. Only SADC and ECOWAS do have the Peace and Security Councils. The rest of the RECs do have dockets. 9, the APSA also requires each REC to have the early warning system that would be linked to the Central Early Warning System based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, at the AU headquarters. The EAC has this system in place. The concept presupposes that for any intervention in peace and security, or prevention, management, and resolution, there should be an early warning. Once there are indications of simmering conflicts, the panel of the wise is convened. This panel comprises of credible persons who can talk to and convince the presidents to cease fire. Each REC is expected to have this function. 10, the East African Standby Force based in Nairobi is another component of APSA. This comes into force in case the panel of the wise option fails. The continental one is called the Amani, a Swahili word for peace. 11, the APSA strengthens the relations between the AU, all 8 RECs, as well as the regional mechanisms, as per the Memorandum of Understanding signed in 2008. The regional mechanisms include the East African Standby Force, the Northern African Brigade, the International Conference for the Great Lakes region, in the Great Lakes region, the Indian Ocean and its small islands. APSA also supports post-conflict reconstruction and development, disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration programs, DRR, and counterterrorism programs, all contained in the AU Peace and Security Protocol. 12, in order to operationalize APSA within the EAC, The 15th meeting of the Council of Ministers, see attached 3, Annexure 3, approved the capacity building project and appointed the ESC liaison officer to the AU following the approval by the 8th meeting of the Summit of Heads of State. And for further details, see Annexure 4. To establish a liaison office at the African Union headquarters. Further, the 16th meeting of the Council of Ministers appointed the following officers to operationalize APSA program in the ESC. A, Peace and Security Expert, P3. B, Conflict and Early Warning Expert, P3. And C, Peace and Security Officer, P2. 13, in line with the need for additional human resource to fully operationalize and support certain peace and security components, the following officers were recruited through a competitive process and joined the APSA unit within ESC Secretariat. And they include the following. A, Senior Analyst, P2. B, Senior Technical Specialist, P2. C, Program Officer at the AU, P2. And Project Accountant, P2. 14. The unit has further continued to benefit from services of the following support staff since May 1st, 2012. A, Administrative Assistant, G5. B, Driver, G2, based in Arusha. C, Driver, G2, also based in Arusha. And D, Driver, G2, based in Addis Ababa. Funding for APSA. 15. APSA has a roadmap which has 3 phases. The first one was in 2008-2010. The APSA at that time was concentrating its efforts, both monetary and others, on capacity building of the AU and the REX. This is because it was a new outfit that was coming up. It had to establish structures and establish them both at the AU and at the REX. This is what happened in all the REX. That is why you find the Peace and Security Council being supported by APSA. They did a lot of training, and quite a number of people were trained in the REX and in the partner states. 16. The second phase was in 2011 to 2013. This was mainly on operationalization of putting into action the pillars. That is the creation of the Peace and Security Council, the early warning systems, the panel of the wise for intervention, and the training of the African Standby Force. In the ESC case, it is the East African Standby Force. 17. The third phase is from 2016 to 2018. It must be emphasized that APSA is mainly supported by the European Union, and in the case of ESC, that is 100%. Why is this so? Africa and Europe have a strategic partnership in all areas, for example, governance, development, infrastructure, energy, and all peace and security. There is the EU-Africa Strategic Partnership on Peace and Security. It is through this that the EU committed itself to fund the APSA, whose negotiation had started way back in 2005. The commitment came in the EU-AU summit in Lisbon in 2008, when EU committed to fund APSA. EU committed to provide money for peace and security protocol. In brief, EU has been the sole funder of APSA. Indeed, it has been successfully funded. 18. Unfortunately, by the end of the year, the funds were not exhausted because it started late. Hence, they were carried over to 2012. The 2011-2013 funds came, and by the end of December 2013, the funds were not exhausted. The same pattern applied to the subsequent financial years, 2014-2015. This time round, there were no new funds provided for the third phase. EU did not disburse more funds on account of the fact that earlier disbursements had not been fully utilized. By July 2015, the funds were not finished, and they were reluctant on the part of the EU. There was reluctance on the part of the EU to sign for new funds when the other ones were not utilized yet. EU gave what they call a no-cost extension. And for details of that no-cost extension, please refer to Annexure 11A. This means that you finish what you have, but no new activities. It means that you continue giving salaries to the employees, but do not initiate any activities. They eventually got finished on August 2015. ESC was now supposed to start negotiations for fresh funds. The negotiations actually started. 19. There is currently a new phase, which should have started in January 2016 and ending in December 2018. That is the phase we are in at the moment. The EU has committed itself in writing to fund the program. The negotiations on funding have been concluded. They have committed themselves in writing that the third phase, ending in December 2018, will be funded by the EU. And for details of that commitment, I refer you to Annexure 11A and 5, respectively. The process has been delayed due to the fact that AU and some RECs have not completed preparing their action plans. 20. Owing to a number of reasons, including the EU fiduciary assessment, the AU has been unable to remit funds to cater for both staff and activity needs. To rescue the situation, the ESC Secretariat has given funds from its own budget, funded by the partner states' contribution, in order to continue supporting the staff and activities under the APSA project to the tune of $320,000 since January 2015, on the understanding that the money will be refunded when disbursements for the APSA project are received from AU. And for details of those arrangements, I refer this Honorable House to Annexure 6, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. You may please to get more details in the annexure. Nonetheless, due to the liquidity problems encountered by the ESC Secretariat and compounded by the delayed budget contribution from the partner states and the long delay in getting disbursements from APSA AU to support the APSA project, it became a challenge to sustain the APSA staff. And for further details on that, I refer you to Annexures 6, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Decision by the Secretary General to terminate employment contracts for APSA project staff. 22. In June 2016, the Secretary General gave instructions to the Director of Human Resource and Administration to terminate the contracts of APSA project staff due to lack of funds to sustain their continued employment and activities. And the details, I refer you to Annexure 6A. 23, the matter was subsequently referred to the Human Resource Advisory Committee by the Director of Human Resource and Administration for consideration and appropriate advice to the Secretary General. And this is contained in Annexure 7. 24, notwithstanding the legal advice from the Council to the Community, CTC, as contained in Annexure 8A, the Secretary General reiterated the decision to issue termination notice to APSA project staff due to lack of funds. And for details on that, I refer you to Annexure 7, Annexure 8B, methodology. 25, the committee organized and held public hearings on the 1st and 2nd September 2016, Arusha, Tanzania. On 10th and 11th October 2016, Zanzibar, in the United Republic of Tanzania, and on 9th to 12th November 2016 in Arusha, Tanzania, and on the 22nd to 23rd November 2016 in Nairobi, Kenya, in response to matters of public importance brought by Honorable Bernard Mulangani before the House and referred to the committee by the Right Honorable Speaker for investigation and reporting. 26. The committee also identified and extended notices of invitation to witnesses to participate in the hearings. A number of witnesses on the APSA project staff did appear and provided both oral and written evidence and all submissions before the committee under oath. They include Minister in the President's Office responsible for ES affairs from the Republic of Burundi, the Secretary General, the Deputy Secretary General in charge of planning and infrastructure, Acting Deputy Secretary General in charge of finance and administration, Deputy Secretary General in charge of political federation, Counsel to the Community, Director Human Resource and Administration, Ambassador Ben Rusiga, the AU ESC Liaison Officer in Arusha at the ESC headquarters, and all the 11 APSA project staff whose contracts were terminated. Those who appeared and addressed the committee included the following, and the list is here presented. Honorable Dr. Susan Kolimba, Chair Council, Honorable Leontina Nzeimana, Minister for ESC Affairs, Republic of Burundi, Honorable Bernard Mulengani, Yala MP and mover of the motion, Ambassador Liberate Mfukeko, ESC Secretary General, Dr. Enos Bukuku, DSG, and Acting DSG Finance and Admin, Mr. Charles Njoroge, DSG Political Federation, Dr. Anthony Kafumbe, Counsel to the Community, Mr. Joseph Ochwada, Director Human Resource, Ambassador Ben Rusiga, AU ESC Liaison Officer, Leonard Beonitwa Bihimiriza, Conflict and Early Warning Expert, Baziraki Kaguta, Peace and Security Expert, Ethel Sirengo, Program Officer, AU Addis Ababa, Frederick Sangawe, Project Accountant, Patrick Mulama, Senior Analyst Officer, Early Warning, Leonard James Njeleja, Senior Technical Specialist, Early Warning, Teresa T. Mondwar, Administrative Assistant, Edward Mugara, Driver Arusha, Johnson Daniel, Driver Arusha, and Daniel Segaya, Driver ESL Liaison Office, Addis Ababa. Procedure for the public hearings. The committee held 4 sessions to discuss methods of conducting the public hearings and generating a report for plenary. The committee prioritized several procedural issues in their deliberations. First, the committee established that the Assembly has a mandate to deal with this petition. This is as articulated in Article 49D of the Treaty for the Establishment of the East African Community, which mandates the Assembly to discuss all matters pertaining to the community and make recommendations to Council as it may deem necessary for the implementation of the treaty. Second, members agreed that to conduct the hearings would follow a defined pattern. Witnesses would be present, present their opinions on the complaints, either orally or written submissions, or both, followed by questions and clarifications from the members. Witnesses would then be invited to respond to questions and give clarifications. Members agreed to refrain from articulating their positions during the hearings. The committee agreed to deliberate on both the oral and written submissions in the public hearings and to provide drafting instructions on the report. Finally, the committee agreed to allow members to submit written proposals, observations, and recommendations as part of a record for the complaints. The committee further mandated the chair to establish a subcommittee of 3 members to work with the committee clerk to draft the report and report back to the committee on Saturday, 21st January 2017 in Kampala, Uganda. Committee observations. 28. APSA is a very important institutional framework that is critical to peace and security and stability in Africa and globally. At the level of the ESC peace and security, it is one of the necessary ingredients for the integration process. One would even argue that it is the main raison d'etre for integration at the ESC and AU. The committee observed that not all institutional structures required by APSA have been put in place in the ESC. The committee appreciates the teething problems, including the lack of sustainable funding mechanism. B, the committee noted the efforts of the Council of Ministers to back the proper establishment and functioning of APSA structures in ESC. C, the committee noted that the relations between the AU on one hand and the RECs on the other hand needs to be clearly defined and refined, including by addressing intra-relations between the recs. Additionally, the flexibility in those relations should be reviewed and ways of enhancing the subsidiarity principle. At the level of relations with other partners, including the EU should allow for a devolved system that rewards effectiveness in individual recs. D, the committee observed that there is a need to address the challenge facing APSA structures at various levels and ensure effectiveness of those structures, including the legal and partnership agreements and the instruments at all levels, harmonization of procedures and mechanisms, including development of capacity, identification and retention of staff, contracting, addressing the challenge of sustainable funding, improving coordination at all levels, and completion of the ratification process by partner states of the ESC Peace and Security Protocol and the attendant institutions. 29. The committee observed that there seems to be lack of understanding and or full appreciation of the role, functions, structures, and the methodology of the ESC APSA structures by the organs of the community. Specifically, the Minister for ESC Affairs from Burundi raised objection on some of the reports of the Situation Room gathered from open sources at a meeting of Council of Ministers. The same objection were raised by the Minister at the committee hearings. And for details on that matter, I refer you to Annex Chair 9. The Minister tabled samples of the reports when she appeared before the committee. The committee has decided not to include these sample reports as part of the record for the following reasons. A, the reports were introduced to the record of the committee without foundation and proper procedure. The reports are generated and submitted to the Deputy Secretary General and in turn to the Secretary General as part of confidential peace and security briefs. The reports are not intended for public consumption, and in fact, introduction into the record may have the negative impact that the Minister from Burundi was unhappy about. B, the introduction of the said reports from open source without the accompanying analysis report and or policy advice, including what the leadership of the Secretariat finally decided to act on or not act on, and or any policy advice they afford the Council of Ministers, will lack completeness of context and may even interfere with the protocols of APSA, the independence of the early warning system, and the role of the Secretariat in performing their duties. C, part of the source of the problem is the delay in the setting up of the ESC Peace and Security Council, which is a critical institution in the APSA. The Security Council will be a specialized entity with the requisite capacity and competence to handle all matters of peace and security in the community. It is designed to interact with the ESC APSA structures in professional and uninformed manner. On the other hand, the Security Council can only be established once the ratification of the ESC Peace and Security Protocol has been completed and its implementation has commenced. 30. Some members of staff of the ESC APSA structures gave their opinion touching on interference and or attempts of interference on work of the staff of ESC APSA structures. And for further details on the same, I refer you to Annexures 6, D, E, F, G. One went further to file details of what he perceived to constitute interference bordering on threats or intimidation. And for purposes of that, Annexure 6I can be referred to. The details did not include evidence of the person or persons that were responsible of the negative image or characterization directed at him, which was distributed in the public domain. The witness withdrew the detailed submissions from the record, but retained his firm belief that he held the view there were attempts to interfere with the work of the staff of ESC APSA structures. The committee decided to expunge the record of the document that was withdrawn. On this specific matter, the committee is of the opinion that part of the complications that have arisen are due to breach of the protocol that are in place currently, such as accessing and circulation of confidential documents of the EAC work without permission and authority and lacking proper context of the purpose and completeness of record of those documents. Unauthorized, selective, and partial release of the documents of EAC APSA structures may be used to unfairly cast aspersions on those structures and its staff. B, the committee held the view that in order to safeguard the integrity, work, and safety of staff of the EAC APSA structures, their work and working atmosphere needs to be immunized from breach and intrusion by both state and non-state actors outside the official channels. The integrity and confidentiality of the sensitive work of the EAC APSA structures needs to be upheld and protected. The committee further held the view that this safeguard on the integrity of the work of EAC APSA structures will guarantee the credibility and viability of the policy advice and all actions coming from those structures. 31. The committee observed that the EAC APSA structures cannot be fully developed without the implementation of the EAC Peace and Security Protocol that is in the final stages of ratification by partner states. 32. Given the importance of peace and security to the EAC region and its integration process, the Assembly needs to play its part in the establishment of this critical unit. The Assembly should build its oversight capacity to handle peace and security matters. The Assembly should also create synergies between the work of EAC, other EAC organs and institutions in peace and security, and the work of the Assembly. In particular, the Assembly should work hard to establish East African Parliamentary Center for Peace and Security. Thus, there should be direct linkage between the infrastructure for peace and security in the community and the work of the Assembly. 33, the attempt to dismiss the EAC APSA staff and by extension shut the EAC APSA structures was done without following required procedures for termination in EAC. And for details, see Annexure 10A and B. This process was not in tandem with human resource-based management practices, and for further details on the same, again, I refer you to Annexure 6, D, E, F, and G. 34. The decision-making of the Secretary General on this matter and the decision arrived at does not demonstrate that they were done in accordance with the EAC staff rules and regulations, and the 34th meeting of the EAC Council of Ministers report, and this is contained in Annexure 10, A and B. Additionally, the leadership style of the Secretary General alienated, ignored, and or excluded the input and advice of all other personnel in the Secretariat. The committee could not find a single individual who agreed with the actions of the Secretary General on this matter. The Secretary General did not explore in totality all advice, technical input, or suggestions with less drastic or intrusive actions with less risks. He was not interested in any other solution or outcome that would have retained the staff concerned or keep the structures functioning. 35. The institution of the case by some of the aggrieved staff members in the East African Court of Justice complicated the matter further. The counsel to the community was put in a difficult, conflictual situation. His written advice to the Secretary General was unambiguously clear that the actions about to be taken by the Secretary General were not backed by law or policy. Yet the treaty requires his office to represent the Secretary General and the community in court. This situation may create serious conflict of interest that is not compatible with principles of good governance and other aspects detailed in Article 6D and Article 7.2 of the treaty. Further, the action of the institution of the case could have easily created a situation of conflict between various organs of the community based on the principle of separation of powers. The committee appreciates the leadership of the Council of Ministers on this aspect. The committee held the view the Council of Ministers may have to revisit this matter to address some of the more serious consequences arising from the actions of the Secretary General, including the conflictual situation that the Office of Counsel to the Community was put under. 36, where the Council of Ministers not to intervene, the committee would have had to make a determination of whether it was seized of the matter and not on the account that the matter was before court. The committee would have had to decide whether the matter fell within parliamentary jurisdiction or was to be considered as a matter falling under the domain of sub judice. 37, the Council of Ministers has pronounced itself on this matter. The committee commends the initial action taken by the Council of Ministers to direct the Secretary General to rescind the termination letters of the staff contracts under Peace and Security Department, the contracts. And for details, please refer to Annexure 10B. 38. Based on the decision of the Council of Ministers, the Secretary General and the Council to the Community were directed to settle the matter amicably out of court. The implementation of the decision of Council also faced the challenge of delay of action from the Office of the Secretary General. It took the decision of the East African Court of Justice for the letters revoking termination of APSA staff to be filed in court, albeit with backdated letters from the Secretary General's office. And for details, again, I refer you to Annexure 11. Effects of the decision to terminate contracts of ESC APSA staff members. 39. The Africa Peace and Security Architecture structures in the ESC play two important functions, namely the carrying out of the role, function, and delivery of responsibilities related to peace and security matters in the region, as well as its related contribution to the African Union infrastructure, and secondly, supporting carrying out of various aspects of the mandate and function of the political federation docket. Thus, the shutting down of the ESC APSA structure and the team will have negative impact on the community and consequently further adverse effects on the African continent. 40. The first negative impact relates to 1. Immobilize the conflict early warning system that is designed to aid the community to proactively address situations that may lead to conflict or timely intervention on peace in the region. B. Undermine the ability and capacity of the community to engage in peacemaking and peace-building efforts in the region. C. Disrupt various ongoing efforts to counter threats of peace in the region, such as the anti-piracy intervention in the Indian Ocean, counter-terrorism measures in the region, intelligence sharing, planning and execution of joint actions, etc. All these critical aspects of making our region and continent secure is dependent and founded on the coordinating function of ESC APSA structure and the team. D. Destabilize the ESC institutional arrangements that involve working closely in partnership with those of partner states will be removed, and ESC institutions such as the Regional Police Forensic Laboratory, the Regional Defense and Counterterrorism Center will be negatively impacted. E. Unsettle the election support program of the community, including pre-election, election, and post-election activities designed to benefit partner states to organize and carry out free, fair, peaceful, and credible elections under their jurisdiction. This aspect includes the setting up and facilitation of the ESC Election Observation Mission. F. Diminish the ability of the community to continue to develop and institutionalize the setting up of the vital components required by the APSA structures, such as the operationalization of the Panel of the Wise and the ESC Security Council. This aspect in particular may be deliberating, bearing in mind the partner states are in the final stages of ratifying the ESC Peace and Security Protocol that will require implementing. It should be noted that this protocol has taken fairly long time to put in place, to put together, and at the point where it requires implementation, the necessary institutional framework for its operationalization would have been dismantled. G, compromise the capacity and expertise carefully nurtured and built over the years in terms of competencies, human resource, and institutional memory, so on. The community will have to start afresh. 41, other adverse impacts relate to the ability and capacity of the political federation docket to carry out its mandate. This is particularly so given the fact that about 2/3 of the staff in this docket are funded and are part and parcel of the EAC APSA structures and team. The resulting radical reduction of the capacity of this docket will undermine the careful negotiations and development proposals on how to handle the ultimate pillar of the community, that is the establishment of political federation as the fourth and final pillar of the integration. At this level, the sensitive process, such as the proposed constitution-making process and the attendant transformation of the treaty for the establishment of the ESC will be affected. 42, further adverse impact relates to the undermining of the working relations in the Secretariat. This particular aspect has the potential of having long-term effects and complications on the effectiveness of the Secretariat. At this level, there are two important facets that will need to be addressed, that are decision-making and working relations at the Secretariat. 43, in respect to decision-making, the committee notes that all decisions made on behalf of the community need to be made in good faith, in the interest of the community, in conformity with the law and policy, and judiciously. In this instance, the committee is convinced the above criterion was not met. The decision was made by the Secretary General without the support of community law, policy, or rules. And for reference, please look at Annexure 10A and B. The overreach and poor judgment at the very least sets a bad precedent that should never be allowed to stand. 44, in respect to working relations at the Secretariat, the committee notes that the irregularities under which the attempts to terminate the contracts of all the staff working for ESA APSA structures has undermined the working relations and trust among staff members. In particular, the committee is concerned that there were no proper consultations between the Office of the Secretary General and the senior personnel, including at the level of DSGs and Council to the Community, respectively. And for further reference, see Annexures 6C-D and Annexure 8A. 45. Further, the reluctance rescinding of the attempted termination of contracts, coupled with the disturbing fact that the evaluation process that are required to make fair and independent administrative actions in relation to either renewing or not renewing contracts of concerned staff members that are coming to an end in the next 2 months. Ordinarily, those processes should have started by December 2016. Given what has gone on, the process needs to be above board to avoid the eventuality or perception that the Secretary General may be able to achieve by other means what he fails to do through unprocedural and unlawful means. 46. At the time of writing this report, the committee received and interacted with the Secretary General on a letter he wrote to the Right Honorable Speaker, and that is provided in an Annexure 7 on the APSA project. During the interaction, the Secretary General reported to the committee that he had already reallocated funds from available budget lines, the 11 APSA project staff, while awaiting disbursement from AU. He further reported to the committee to have renewed the contracts of the 11 APSA project staff to 30th June 2017. Recommendations. 47. To the Council of Ministers. The recommendations are to specific decision makers and power centers. To the Council of Ministers, the committee appreciates the principled way it handled the matter and recommends as follows. A, to ensure that the Secretary General implements decisions of the Council fully on this matter. B, to fast-track the completion of the ratification process of the ESC Peace and Security Protocol and its implementation, including the setting up of the ESC Security Council, the standby force, the panel of the wise, and related institutional capacities and structures. C, to ensure the operationalization of its previous decisions, including reinstating and directing that the staff of ESC APSA structures be mainstreamed into the ESC structures and payroll. D, to cause to be prepared a supplementary budget to bridge the funding gap for the ESC APSA staff in this financial year. E, to prepare to appreciate and respect obligations under APSA management and related protocols. F, that Council considers development of regulations for lifting of immunity of officers of the community who make decisions that are not done according to the law. G, to recommend to the Council and to the African Union that it works with the various regional economic communities who are part of the AU APSA structures to enhance the effectiveness of the devolved structures in those communities, including the funding, coordination, contracting of staff. H, to further urge the Council to call upon the AU to employ a proactive engagement with the EU on matters of funding the APSA program on a sustainable basis. Recommendations to the Secretary General. The committee noted with concern a number of irregularities in the process of decision-making in this matter, which may expose the community at risk. The committee further recommends as follows. A, that the Secretary General adheres to the provisions of the treaty for the establishment of the community in respect to his mandate. B, that the Secretary General should expeditiously implement fully the decisions of the Council of Ministers without reservation. C, that the Secretary General adopts a consultative leadership style and teamwork that is guided by principles of good governance within the community in general and the ESC Secretariat in particular. D, that the Secretary General should work closely with the African Union structures to strengthen the ESC APSA structures. 49, the committee makes recommendations to the Assembly, and it does so as follows. A, to build and enhance the oversight capacity to handle matters of peace and security. That is, to build the Assembly's, to build and enhance the Assembly's oversight capacity to handle matters of peace and security. B, to create synergies between the work of the ESC organs and institutions in peace and security and the work of the Assembly. C, to cause the Council to hold an annual debate on the report to be submitted to it by the Council on progress made by the community in the development of its foreign and security policies. D, to operationalize the East African Parliamentary Institute, EAPI, and specifically work to establish the East African Parliamentary Center for Peace and Security as part of EAPI institutional framework. E, to work with the Council to fund its activities that may not be catered for in the budget process and avail funds to support oversight activities. F, to continue to monitor diligently the ESC APSA structures to ensure that they work properly without interference. Acknowledgements. Finally, the committee would like to thank the following personalities and institutions for having facilitated the investigation of the complaints raised in the motion for Peace and Security Department at the ESC Secretariat under the African Peace and Security Architecture APSA program. A, the Right Honorable Speaker, Iyala, for facilitating and making sure that the committee got the funding to enable it to carry out its investigations effectively. B, the various witnesses who turned up to share with and testify to the committee their evidence on the complaints raised in the motion for APSA program at the ESC Secretariat. Then C, the Office of the Clerk, for ensuring that all logistical issues were in order prior to the commencement of the investigations on the complaints raised in the motion for the APSA program at the EAC Secretariat, and the committee members for having executed their mandate under the directive given by the Right Honorable Speaker regarding the issue at hand. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to present and call upon members to support the report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mike Sebalo, for presenting the report of the committee very eloquently and effectively. Honorable members, the motion before the House is that the report of the Committee on Regional Affairs, Conflict Resolutions on public hearing on the complaints raised in a motion for the Peace and Security Department at the EAC Secretariat under the African Peace and Security Architecture, or otherwise APSA, program be adopted. Debate is open. Honorable Zain.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not debating yet. I would like to thank Chair Emeritus, Honorable Sebalu, for the presentation, but for the completeness of the record of this report. The committee agreed to delete and expunge a word from our record, but it seems to go through to this august assembly. So I'd like to request the Honorable Sebalu to confirm and delete the word ignored, which appears on page 11, paragraph 34, line 5, from the word alienated. There is a word there, ignored. That word was deleted and expunged from the record of the committee. So I would like to ask the chair to confirm. Yes, to confirm, so that the record would reflect without that word. Page 11. Page 11.
Number?
No. Paragraph 34, the 5th line. After the word alienated, there is the word ignored.
Ignored. Alienated, comma, ignored.
That word was deleted and expunged from the record of the committee, and the meeting was chaired by Honorable Mwinyi, and all the members are here. So that is the correct record.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, and I want to put it on record that that indeed was the case. It was expunged from the record, and it should not form part of this report.
Thank you so much. Concern noted, and the necessary action will be taken to that effect. Honorable Mlengani, procedure.
Mr. Speaker, I want to move under Rule 14 and 30C to request that this House defers debate on this report to allow us some ample time to read through and internalize the report for tomorrow. But also, given the time remaining, I don't think each of us will have enough time to debate this important report, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move.
Honorable members, Honorable Mlengani has moved under Rule 14 and 30C that debate on this report be deferred to tomorrow to allow members peruse through the report and the annexes. Who are the seconders of the motion? Honorable Mumbi, Honorable Frederick, Honorable Rujemba, Honorable Strato, Honorable Sarah, and all the members. Honorable members, I don't want to put this matter to a debate. I'll just put it straight. Honorable Ogle?
Yes, Right Honorable Speaker. While I accept that it is important for members to have time to read and internalize the report, it is voluminous in nature. My fear is, given the experience we have had with the legal report, and the timelines we are operating in, because our sessions are normally in the morning, and we have got to complete that within specific time. It may not be, we may not afford members enough time to contribute to this report. So I suggest for those of us who have perhaps some idea and knowledge about this thing, that we continue debating, and part of, we don't have any conclusion, and the report could spill over. The debate could as well proceed tomorrow. So I suggest that the debate proceeds. There are members who are in the know about this matter, and they want to contribute. Let's do it, and that way will give us an opportunity. The entire House will be given an opportunity to debate this matter. So with a lot of respect to my good friend,
Honorable members, I was not subjecting this matter to a debate because it actually eats into the time. I wanted to subject it straight to a vote to dispose of Honorable Mlengane's motion. Honorable Zain, only Honorable Zain, then I...
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to take cognizance of the work that is still remaining for this session, which is a lot, which Honorable Ogle has made reference
Honorable
to.
Zain, sorry for the interruption. Honorable members, maybe as you consider, you may want to know that tomorrow, I've actually restructured. We are meeting in the afternoon. We have agreed with the Parliament of Uganda. We have the whole day. We'll meet in the afternoon and stretch late, as we always do, to clear off all business before the House. That one I needed to bring that information to the House. Proceed.
Thank you, Chair. But I just wanted to make a quick point, and which is strengthened by what you have just shared with the House. I am a member of this committee. Honorable Ogle is a member of this committee. So, as members of this committee, we have interacted with the matter very intensely. I would request that we abide and we agree with the motion that has been moved to give other members an opportunity to internalize what the committee is saying. What Honorable Ogle was suggesting could work, but my concern is it will color the thinking of members who would not have had a chance to independently read on their own before we started the debate. So I would like to support Honorable Mlengani. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, honorable members. I think let's not debate this, Honorable Rejema. The motion moved by Honorable Mlengani under Rule 14 and Rule 30C, that debate on this report of Committee on Legal Rules and Privileges be deferred to tomorrow. May those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against nay? The ayes have it.
We move to item number 4 on order paper.
Honorable
Report of the Committee on Communication, Trade and Investment on the petition seeking the amendment of the 5th schedule of the ASC Customs Management Act to include vehicles, spares, and equipment used for motorcycle racing and karting. Be moved by way of motion.
The Chair Committee on Communication, Trade and Investment was delegated Honorable Patricia.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I beg to move that the report of the Committee on Communication, Trade and Investment on the petition seeking the amendment of the 5th schedule of the EAC Customs Management Act to include vehicle spares and equipment used for motorcycle racing and karting be adopted. I beg to move.
Seconders, Honorable Ndairo, Honorable Mlengane, Honorable Angela, Honorable Sarah, and all the members standing. Honorable Patricia, proceed.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I will read this report on behalf of the Chair, Honorable Mukasambide. The Treaty for the Establishment of East African Community in Article 127.1 stipulates to provide an enabling environment for the private sector to take full advantage of the community. Further, Rule 86(1) of the Yala Rules of Procedure mandates associations or individuals with right address in EAC to petition the Assembly on a matter which comes within the community's fields of activity and which affects him or her or the association directly. In this respect, the Motor Sports Club in East African petitioned the Assembly seeking the amendment of the 5th schedule of the East African Community Customs Management Act to include the vehicles, spares, and equipment used for motorcycle racing and karting. The Right Honorable Speaker referred the petition, which is annexed to this report, to the Committee on Communication, Trade and Investment for processing and consideration. Due to the technical nature of this petition, and also referring to Rule 87(2) of the Rules of Procedure of Yala, found it imperative to organize meetings with petitioners and the other stakeholders to establish the facts of the situation. The committee therefore invited the petitioners from EAC partner states on 23 May 2016 in Arusha, Tanzania, to have a more valid and detailed understanding on the issues in the petition, since this area is so technical. Number 2, objectives of the stakeholders meeting. The overall objectives of the meeting was to understand the merits and the demerits of the petition from petitioners, technocrats, and policymakers, and then propose the recommendation and the way forward. The methodology used. The committee held meetings with different stakeholders to consider the petition of the Motor Sports Club in East Africa. The committee met various stakeholders, including the petitioners, the EAC Council of Ministers, and the responsible technical officers from the EAC Secretariat. During these meetings, presentations, clarifications, questions, and answers approach was employed in consideration of the petition. Presentations and consideration of the petition by EAC Motorsports Clubs. The petitioners presented their concerns to the committee, and the presentation highlighted that karting or kart racing is a variant of open-wheeled motorsports with small open four-wheeled vehicle caked karts, go-karts, or gear-based shifter karts, depending on the design. It was mentioned that the young people from the age of 8 years race karts, and they offer solid training ground and foundation for future rally drivers. They further said that they are neither fit for nor usable on the ordinary roads, but only raced on special tracks. Petitioners also mentioned that motorcycle racing has several disciplines, but so far, only 3 disciplines are practiced in East African community, namely motocross, enduro, and road racing. It was further noted that motorsports bikes are not usable on the normal roads, as well as because they do not have the specifications required for use on public roads. They do not have lights, horns, and they are purely used for sports, off-road, and on closed race tracks. They are easy to identify and monitor using the manufacturer's special model numbers. Racing safety gear is currently classified as clothing and not recognized for the safety if according to the users. Motorcycle racing sports are far cheaper compared to other motorsports such as motor rallying, and are capable of attracting many people to join and explore their talents. The motocross racing discipline, for example, is open to persons starting from the age of 5 years onwards. It was highlighted that roads, street bikes do not fall into this category. It was further noted that there is limited participation in these disciplines because of the high cost of the motorbikes and required riding and protective gear. Due to limited participation, The region does not have a pool of talented people in this discipline to qualify into future rally drivers. The motorsports do not get the necessary financial support from governments, and even corporate sponsorship is limited and getting smaller every day. The participants in these sports buy these machines and meet the necessary expenses from their pockets. The motorsports clubs, therefore, are requesting for the exemption of duties levied on racing bikes, carts, spares, and protective gears. This exemption will reduce and also entice many participants to join motorsport and even increase competitiveness in these sports both locally and internationally. Petitioners asserted that the purpose of submitting the petition, therefore, is to seek for the amendment of fifth schedule to the East African Customs Management Act to include vehicle, spares, and equipment used in motorcycle racing and karting. The effect of the amendment will be an exemption of import duties levied on motocross bikes, racing carts, and their respective spares and safety gear similar to the exemption awarded to motor rally cars. The petitioners emphatically asserted that the exemption given under Section 9 of the schedule was discriminatory in nature, as motorsports also includes these other disciplines. Observation of members on the petition. Members observed that amending the fifth schedule of the EAC Customs Management Act would act as a stepping stone to encourage and promote participation in motorsports exercise. However, the increased participation is hampered by the cost of the motorbikes and required riding and protective gears, coupled with the high duties levied on importation of these items, making it almost out of reach for many who would wish to participate. Some members further observed that the age bracket of the people participating in the motorsport discipline range from 5 years to 8 years and above. Therefore, since it involves school-going age participants, it should be given due consideration due to their level of income. Number 3, members further observed that Clause 9 of the 5th Schedule of EAC Customs Management Act is discriminatory in nature because it only provides exemption on duty for the lorry drivers, yet they are also high-end income earners. Therefore, this privilege should also be uniformly extended to motor sporting participants. Number 4, it was observed that once duties are waived from the import duties, the sporting will be cheaper, hence increased participation, leading to talent identification, which can in turn reduce unemployment among the youth. Number 5, members observed that this is a new industry which will champion the children and increase their employment opportunities. Number 6, members also advised the petitioners to lobby their respective revenue authorities and push their concerns from the national level as well as from the regional level. Number 7, members also observed that these games should be introduced in schools to attract many young people. Number 4.2, observation of the Council on the petition. The committee arranged a meeting with the EAC Council of Ministers to consider the petition. At the meeting, the Council of Ministers observed that the petitioners would have directed their petition to the Council of Ministers through the Secretary General for redress before it was brought to IALA, because amendment of the 5th schedule of EAC Customs Management Act is a mandate of the summit, although it delegates the Council to perform the role after 3 years. The Council of Ministers informed the committee that it has its technical arms that deal with technical matters like this petition. Therefore, the Council will engage with the technocrats on the matter and give feedback to the committee on the status. The Council informed the committee that the petition will be referred to its relevant technical team which is the Sectoral Council on Trade, Industry, Finance and Investment, that will first scrutinize this petition and consider all the implications of the amendment of the fifth schedule as a result of this petition. The Council therefore would report on the implication of the petition to the committee in November 2016. The committee, however, did not receive any update from the Council of Ministers with regard to the petition by the Motorsports Club in East Africa. And therefore, the committee thought it was important to bring back the report to the House so that the House can make a decision. 5 recommendations. The committee recommends to the Assembly to urge the Council of Ministers to amend the fifth schedule of the EAC Customs Management Act to accommodate the needs of the Motorsports Club in East Africa. I beg to move. Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honourable Patricia, for the eloquent presentation of the report. Honourable members, the motion before the House is that the report of the Committee on Communication, Trade and Investment on the petition seeking the amendment of the fifth schedule of the EAC Customs Management Act to include vehicle spares and equipment used for motorcycle racing and karting be adopted. Debate is open. Honorable members, before we move into debate, you remember that we received 5 petitions from East Africans. We disposed of almost all the petitions except this one. This petition has stayed with us in the Assembly for too long, so I thank the Committee of CTI for concluding our part as the Assembly that was petitioned. I thank you so much for that. And the Motorsports Fraternity actually invited myself and members of YALA last 2 weeks ago, and we participated in the East African Awards, and they were very concerned about this particular subject before the Assembly. Thank you. Honorable Dr. Ndairo.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. The petitioners were not asking too much when you consider the nature of the sport. And we are told, the Council is here to confirm, that the EAC has already given the rally drivers and other motorsports the privilege to import their spare parts and the related tools and equipment tax-free. So, Right Honorable Speaker, it is unfair to deny our young ones the opportunity to excel and also develop their talents. The motorcart, or the motorsport we are talking about, includes young children of 5 years. Young children of 5 years. 1, it is a sport activity. 2, it is an entertainment. 3, it is a place to innovate and develop talents. I was talking to Honorable Ogre here, checking some statistics. Do you know that one rally driver earns more than the budget of EAC, an individual? And you are denying East Africans the chance to one day compete in the Formula One? Why? The total budget of Formula One is 1.2 billion euros. 1.2 billion euros. I don't know whether the Secretary General has even half of that budget. Now, it is a sport that only takes care of both young ones, but in particular, in isolated places. It does not interfere with the infrastructure we are used to, like the roads, like the traffic lights, etc., etc. They have special roads. They have no gears, as you are told. And it is something that we should instead encourage and introduce to all our schools, to introduce in all our communities. We should not look at them as if they are alien or foreign to us. We are not going to subject our children to climb bulls or goats. In the 21st century, we should use equipment and tools and facilities that are available for competitive purposes. I remember when we were young, I think the only things we had to do was to create our own motor carts, and you could cut a piece of tree and you try to imitate a bicycle, and then you are pushed by a friend and gone. No, those things are dead already. They are dead in the sense that they can no longer fit with the aspirations of the young ones. Why don't we introduce the modern equipment to our children? I understand the council by saying that probably this will be abused if opened and other people might take advantage. Those fears can be worked on. It doesn't mean that any decision, you can get a decision without risk. We take the risk, but we work to improve the usage and to protect from abuse. We cannot sit and be defeated by the potential abusers, potential criminals. If they hold us back, then we shall never develop. I think we should move from that, from those fears, and be able to give the petitioners what they are asking for until we find out that the system is abused or the system is not worth it, then we can as well revisit our decisions. But sitting and not giving any communication, not taking any decision, I feel we are defeating our own cause. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, I beg that we support and adopt the report from the CTI committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Dr. Ndairo. Honorable Mariam.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I had my point even before Honorable Dr. Ndahiro stood up. I was not aware that the exemption of duty levy on racing bikes and carts and spares were meant for young children. But I wanted to get more clarification from from Honorable Patricia, maybe when she's summing up, on which criteria that were used to ask for exemption on this duty on levy on racing and bike carts, because as far as I know, motorbike racing is a rich people's sport. So once we say we want exemption, is there any clarification that is available to clarify or to specify that we are meaning for children? Because if it was for children, I don't want to sound feminist, but if it's for children, yes. But if for older persons, motorsports is the rich people's sports, so why need exemption? I just wanted clarification because they are the one who dealt with this petition. I thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Maybe before Honorable Mlengani takes the floor, honorable members may want to know that under the fifth schedule, the rally vehicles are already exempted. But they did not exempt the bikes and the carts. Honorable Mlengani.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to second and support the report of the committee. Mr. Speaker, you've put the debate in context that the rally drivers are exempted. And in taxation, when you're looking at your people in a country or a region, it's not good to bring a tax that is discriminatory. Good taxes must be non-discriminatory. The tax we are talking about discriminates the motorcycle riders who compete, discriminates the cart riders, but advantages the rally drivers. When you look at the sporting of motorcycling, it's more dangerous than rally driving. Why? The body of the human being is the body of the motoring. So in other words, the person riding a motorbike or a bicycle or a cart is directly exposed to the hazards of accidents, as opposed to cars that are at times armored with very strong metals inside them, that even if it rolled, a rally driver would just walk out and you get amazed. Now, when you go to hospitals, most people you find hanged legs are motorbike riders, bicycle cyclists. You rarely find seriously, unless the accident has been really fatal, for a car driver. Most of them get accidents and they will walk out and say the cars have knocked themselves. So, Mr. Speaker, I want support that the council considers the requests and the recommendation by the committee. Mr. Speaker, this goes in line with the people with the disabilities, specifically people who are visually impaired. The same schedule doesn't give advantage to people with the visual impairment because of the fear that it will be abused. Mr. Speaker, everything we put in place is abused. This is why police is there. And this is why accountability agencies are there to check people who are abusing what is law. So to us, abuse is not our responsibility. Ours is equitable consideration of the people in the region. Mr. Speaker, limiting the young generation to train out their talents is limiting the future of these countries and this region participation in the world sports. And we wouldn't like to be the current generation inhibiting our future youth in the region to go and represent East African community. At that time, maybe it will be a political federation, limiting us to have representatives going in Formula One, like Honorable Nairo said. So, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I support the report of the committee and kindly request the Council of Ministers to have a considered mind in areas of stopping discrimination amongst their people in the region. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mlengane. I invite Honorable Patricia to respond. This is a very concise and straight report. Or maybe before you, the Council of Ministers. Chair Council of Ministers, this is a matter that is seized by you. I think it will not be fair for us to just gloss over it without hearing from Council of Ministers.
Honorable Speaker and member of this Parliament, as you have seen in the report, what we had, it is what I'm saying now, that this matter is supposed to be submitted to the Council so that they can give their views, because it is premised in the authority and competence of the Council. And we are waiting for the the matter to be submitted there, and then they will consider and see the merit and demerit of the same. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Patricia. Clarification from Honorable
for
Ogle.
the minister. I think if I got the minister right, can she give some specific timelines about what she's talking about?
The sectoral council of the ministers will be sitting on 5th and 6th of the February. So just ask you to submit it through the Secretary General as usual, per procedure, and then they will look at it and see if there is a merit of giving you this privilege or not.
Honorable Ogle with a follow-up.
Speaker, the undertaking by the minister on this floor is that during our March session in Kigali, we are going to have a word on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Honorable Patricia.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, and I would like to thank the contributors to this report, Honorable Ndahiro for enriching the report, Honorable Mlengana as well for enriching the report, and Honorable Maria Musa, I think you got a response from my colleagues, Honorable Ndahiro and Honorable Mlengani, and especially because there are not so many people already engaged in these sports. It's also a way of promoting it so that more children, more young people can start learning how to do cutting and the other similar activities. Right Honorable Speaker, it was not in any way to say that the Council of Ministers did not do its work. But the committee looked at the time frame remaining of this assembly to conclude its work. And since they had promised that the sectoral council would have met before November, and the council would have reported to the assembly, came back to the committee by November. And since we are already in the end of January, we didn't know how long it may take, and we thought it's better we take up a conclusive recommendation which directs this petition to the council so that they can handle it continuously, even if it takes longer than they can manage, because for them, they will not close the doors like the assembly. So I wanted to ask for the Council of Ministers chair to understand that it is in good faith that we thought it is important to bring it back to the House, because as a committee, we were stuck with a petition which have been with us for almost over 1 year. I thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I thank everybody, and on behalf of the chair, I beg to submit.
Thank you, Honorable Patricia. Honorable members, the motion before the Assembly is that the report of the Committee on Communication, Trade and Investment on the petition seeking the amendment of the 5th schedule of the EAC Customs Management Act to include vehicle spares and equipment used for the motorcycle racing and karting be adopted. May those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against nay. The ayes have it. Before the honorable members, the ball is now back on one. Now that the report of the committee has been adopted by the House, the Office of the Speaker will definitely transmit this petition and the recommendation to the relevant office, specifically the Council of Ministers, for it to be taken to the Sectoral Council on Trade and Investment. Thank you.
Item number 6 on order paper, motion for a resolution of the Assembly urging EAC partner states to comprehensively address domestic violence in the region. Motion.
Honorable Shairos.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Speaker. I beg to move a motion for a resolution of the Assembly urging EAC partner states to comprehensively address domestic violence in the region. I beg to move.
Seconders. Honorable Sebalu. Honorable Angela, Honorable Oda, Honorable Buchumi, Honorable Dr. Odette, and all the members standing. Honorable, proceed and read your motion and justify.
Mheshimiwa Speaker, before I begin to justify my motion,
Read it first. Read the motion. Then you go to justify. Present the motion.
I wanted to make a small amendment.
No, that's how it is done procedurally.
Motion for a resolution of the Assembly urging EAC partner states to comprehensively address domestic violence in the region. Whereas Article 6D of the Treaty for the Establishment of the East African Community provides that the fundamental principles that shall govern the attainment of the integration objectives shall include governance, including adherence to the principles of democracy, the rule of law, accountability, transparency, justice, equal opportunities, gender equality, as well as the recognition, promotion, and protection of human and people's rights in accordance with the provisions of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. And whereas under Article 121E of the treaty, the EAC partner states undertook to cooperate in the areas of enhancing the role of women in socio-economic development through taking such measures that shall eliminate prejudices against women and promote the equality of female gender with that of the male gender in every respect. Noting that while traditionally domestic violence was mostly associated with the inflicting of physical injury by one family or household member or another on repeated habitual pattern of such behavior, domestic violence broadly includes physical, emotional, verbal, psychological, and economic abuse of a victim or anyone related to him or her. Noting that the Charter of the United Nations reaffirms faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of men and women. Further noting that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights affirms the principles of the inadmissibility of discrimination and proclaims that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, and that everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forthwith without distinction of any kind, including distinction based on sex. Aware that states parties to the International Covenants on Human Rights have the obligation to ensure the equal rights of men and women to enjoy all economic, social, cultural, civil, and political rights. Further aware that the resolutions, declarations, and the recommendations adopted by the United Nations and the specialized agencies promoting equality of rights of men and women, recalling that domestic violence violates the principles of equality of rights and respect for human dignity, inflicts emotional and psychological trauma on the victims, is an obstacle on the participation of victims on equal terms with the mankind in the political, social, economic, and cultural life of their countries, hampers the growth of prosperity of society and the family, and makes more difficult the full development of the potentialities of both men and women in the service of their countries and of humanity. Recognizing that despite the efforts made by EAC partner states to legislate against domestic violence, these attempts do not provide a comprehensive national response to domestic violence, addressing prevention, prosecution, and adequate provision of service to the victims. And as such, the vice has continued to be overlooked, excused, or denied, especially when the abuse is psychological, emotional, and economic rather than physical. Now, therefore, this Assembly do resolve to, 1, condemn any act of practice of domestic violence and urge the EAC citizenry to refrain from engaging in the vice. 2, this Assembly urge all the EAC partner states to take all appropriate measures, including legislation, to modify or abolish existing laws, regulations, customs, and practices which constitute domestic violence. Number 3, we urge the EAC partner states to step up public awareness campaigns against all acts and practices of domestic violence. I beg to move, Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Shiros. Maybe you can make your comment that you needed to make earlier now, before I...
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Speaker, for your guidance. Mheshimiwa Speaker, under Rule 27 on our rules of procedure, I request this House to allow me to make a small amendment on the heading of this motion. I request to include the following words: gender-based violence.
Okay.
I therefore seek this request to this House for this motion to be read as motion for a resolution of the Assembly urging EAC partner states to comprehensively address domestic violence, gender-based violence in the region. I beg to submit.
Thank you, Honorable Shiros. Honorable members, the motion before the Assembly is that this Assembly do resolve to urge the EAC partner state to comprehensively address domestic violence in the region. Debate is open. Are you rising on clarification
Yes,
to the
sir.
motion or to debate it?
Not quite debating. I don't quite understand.
Okay.
Right, Honorable Speaker, I understand the member's right to bring a motion of any kind, provided it is within the context of our rules and the treaty. I also do not wish to underrate the importance of this important motion. Nonetheless, the clarification I'm seeking is, do we have any scientific data to give us an indication that the so-called gender-based violence is actually happening at an alarming rate in this region? One. Secondly, before, I'm not taking it, let me finish. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I think we need to extract resolutions in this Assembly based on currency and its immediacy. Now, I thought we are facing as a region a crisis of the biting drought, one. Secondly, we have a crisis of governance. Thirdly, we have a crisis of corruption. I thought those ones should have taken precedence. I really want to understand what is the urgency of this.
Honorable Ogle, you will express your view on the motion as being not something relevant, and you can vote against it or pro it in a substantive debate. But the member, under the rules of procedure and in our judgment, she finds it right and befitting that Article 6D of the treaty provides for such kind of protection, and he feels that in assessment, that's a vice that is ongoing in the community. The rest will be brought in the debate, and we shall vote on the motion. Thank you so much. And I'd give an honorable order. Honorable Shairos, I think it will be within your interest that members express their views on your motion. Then when you're summarizing, you can mention many things. We have very few minutes. Honorable order, proceed.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa Speaker, for giving me this floor. And I want to, first of all, thank the government of Uganda, the Parliament of Uganda, and the citizens of Uganda for the warm welcome accorded to us. I want straightforward to say that I support this motion, and I thank Honorable Shairos Banji for this important initiative. I want to, before I go further, I want to say that we have studies in place, research in place, which indicates that after every 20 seconds, someone becomes a victim of gender-based violence. Though partially I support the idea of Honorable Ogle that it is very important when we come up with these important motions or statements on gender-based violence, it is important always to come up with the statistics, with the facts, with the references. And I think during the deliberations on this, people are going to bring this in the assembly to help the members understand the importance of this issue. It has been discussed in many forums, and it has come into different into the attention of the member states on the challenge of the gender-based violence. And I want to support Honorable Shairos when she requested to change the title to actually read motion for a resolution on assembly urging the EAC partner states to comprehensively address, I propose, not domestic stroke gender-based violence, but gender-based violence in totality. Because to my understanding, gender-based violence includes also domestic violence. And if we don't take this in totality, we might lose some of the important issues, because the gender-based violence also happens in public, it happens in a workplace, it happens in domestic, it happens everywhere. So we need to be careful when we choose the words to use, especially when we debate on gender-based violence. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I mentioned before, gender-based violence in our member states is not something new. It's not a new topic. But the issue here is that our member states have adopted policies, have adopted laws, have put different strategies and programs, but the problem still exists. And I want to inform this assembly that this is not a matter of something which is simple. There is killings, there are human trafficking as we speak today, which cross-cuts our borders, either from Rwanda, from Burundi, from Tanzania, from Uganda, from any member states. And this is an urgent issue and a serious issue which will affect our economy, which affects our rights, and it is a human rights issue. It is not the matter of sympathy to the victims. It is a matter of a human right, it's a matter of violation of human rights, it is a matter of taking care of the citizens whom we represent in this assembly. And I have been really happy to hear that everyone who takes the floor says the community, the East African community, is for the people. Who are those people? People who are violated, people who are not given their rights. A child, we have cases in EAC member state where a child of 1 year, even month, are defiled. You can imagine 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 months defilement for our children. Those are gender-based violence issues. So, without taking much of your time, I support this motion fully, but for the matter of principle, I wanted to request the Council of Ministers to put in place the policy for gender-based violence, and that is where we are going to cover the issue, the pertinent issue raised by Honorable Ogley, that we need to have indicators, we need to have statistics, we need to have facts within the policies. And this really helps to come up also with the gender-based violence law, which I also request the Council of Ministers to quickly take it as a priority. Because we cannot have proper sensitization, we cannot have comprehensive plans or strategies, as Honorable Shai Rose is requesting, if we don't have tools to help us put forward and request for accountability from our member states, request for the implementation of what we are going to be have addressed in the policy and the law. So I request to have the legal tool against gender-based violence, and I request, in order to have a proper legal tool, we need to have a policy. So I want to support again this motion. As we are waiting for these tools, we need to continue mobilizing, sensitizing, and before I forget, we need to involve men and boys. We have been leaving behind men and boys in sensitization programs, in making sure that they understand the effect of gender-based violence since they are still young. So we need to not to look men as perpetrators, we need to look them as partners in the process of eradicating gender-based violence. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Order. I give Honorable Buchumi.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, to give me the floor. As it is the first time I take the floor, I want to thank sincerely the President of the Republic of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, for having come to open our plenary session. I take also the opportunity to thank our sisters and brothers, member of YARA from Uganda, for the warm welcome. Coming back to the motion, I want to congratulate Honorable Shai Rose Banji for having initiated this important motion. All right, Honorable Speaker, the domestic violence issue is a reality when you look what is happening in different families. When we talk about domestic violence, many people could think that it is concerning only for women, but men also are facing at that kind of problems. Of course, women still in big numbers to suffer than men. Right, Honorable Speaker,
I know that if everybody here stands to give the examples she knows or he knows, we may spend the whole day to share the example without finish. Right, Honorable Speaker, let me to share with you 2 examples among others. The first one, there was a misbehaved woman who came late night, and when her husband asked her where she was, immediately the conflict began, and that woman took a knife and tried to cut her husband's neck. Unfortunately, that woman failed. The husband didn't die. The second example I want to give you, Right Honorable Speaker, there was a woman who has been cutted her 2 arms because when she gives a birth, she always gave birth girls. And now that lady is without arms, the 2 arms. You can imagine how it is criminal to hear that situation. Right Honorable Speaker, in our society, some men or women are victims of our culture. For example, in my country, there is a saying that nikozubakwa. If I translate, it means households are made as such. Especially in a rural area, you may find a woman who is beaten by her husband from Monday up to Sunday, but she continued to stay at her home saying that nikozubakwa, that saying.
Information
I take
from
it.
Honorable Sebalu.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable, for giving way. The information I want to give is that in some cultures, there are beliefs and practices, and to the effect that some women believe that if the husband does not beat them, then he doesn't love them.
Honorable Buchumi.
Thank you very much for the information. Right Honorable Speaker, although there are so many legislation, laws, many associations dealing with such problems, some women don't expose the problem to those women associations because they fear that if other women hear that I want to expose such kind of problem, they could laugh them like that. In my understanding, Right Honorable Speaker, the legislation in place in our respective partner states, they are there, but women continue to suffer, and some of them are treated by the husband like they are tools. It seems that women are not...
Information from the Honorable Minister, Honorable Maganda.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable, and through my chair of the council. I just want to give the information to my colleague, Member of Parliament, that domestic violence is assumed so much affiliated to women. But probably that is an aspect of the inferiority complex that comes up, that sometimes women are assumed to be weak. That is by perception. But the fact remains that people who suffer silently, they are men. In fact, for us men, we suffer so much silently on domestic violence. And reports have indicated that, and which has been collected by efforts which have come up by NGOs, CBOs, that especially in Uganda, under the Ministry of Gender, in 2009, 57% of the women were reporting their issues of domestic violence, and 90% of men could report. 2011, 52% of the women could report, and the men, it was 14%. That is an indicator that the violence on women was coming down, but again on men it was increasing. Now, 2015 shows that now domestic violence on women, which is being reported, and we believe now this is an elite level because there's a bigger emancipation. There are groups that has come in to educate the women on their rights. We have a feeling that right now, even if you point a finger at a woman, he will definitely run to report. So it has again dropped to 42. But the men, it has increased to 22. That is an indicator that there's a lot of suffering that is going on men. But what we look at here, members, is the discussion is and the way the motion has been brought, it's domestic violence. And I would need to probably to redirect the discussion that let's look at the aspect of domestic violence to cut across the family, not basically to discuss and we bring it to an assumption that it's only women who are suffering domestic violence. In fact, men suffer, but they only keep quiet because of the element of superiority. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Further information?
I was about...
I wanted to give her further information.
Do you like to take information?
Yes.
From Honorable Casey?
Now, based on the...
No, Honorable Ogle. Honorable Casey first.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Since this is my first time to talk, I like to thank the government of Uganda and the Parliament for giving access to use this chamber and to host us here. The information is that the word gender does not mean women. It means both men and women. And also I'd like to bring information that in this gender violence, boys are also suffering a lot. They've already talked about men, I'm talking about boys. Boys suffer a lot because they are raised being beaten up that they have to be strong. They say, in order to be a man, you have to be beaten. And this is also a violence. And therefore, when we talk about gender violence, it includes both men and women, it includes both girls and boys. And in particular, even young little girls and young little boys, they suffer violence because of their gender. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Buchumi, as you conclude, and I give Honorable Ogle to substantive.
I wanted to conclude. No, I don't take it. I don't take it. Maybe we take the floor after me. Right, Honorable Speaker. I thank Honorable Minister from Uganda and Honorable Casey for giving me clarification. Maybe when I stood up, I gave example to show how men and women, included girls and boys, that are affected of that domestic violence. Right, Honorable Speaker, I was saying that the laws are there, legislation is there, but the problem is the effective implementation. So I'd like to propose an amendment on the resolution number 2 if the mover of the motion allows, to include that, to include on that second resolution to effectively implement the existing legislation. Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I strongly support the motion.
Thank you so much, honorable members. Honorable members, I'm going to give everybody who takes the floor 3 minutes in the interest of time. Honorable Mumbi. Honorable Dairano, you're the official seconder. I'll give it to you.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I stand to support this motion, and especially for Honorable Shairoz mentioning about the trauma that we go through politically, socially, economically, culturally, and just by that, we are all victims. This is not a laughing matter. Political violence has affected us at different levels. It is only pronounced, especially during elections, when women face physical violence, but also men through the emotional abuse that goes on during campaigns. You don't belong to the right tribe, you don't, you know, that is political violence. And we probably, when we are talking about gender-based violence, we only look at the woman aspect of it. I stand here to say that thank you to Shairoz, because economic aspect of gender violence is that poor people are manipulated, are abused by the political class. Marginalization is violence. Poverty caused by politicians is violence to the society. And I dare say that when you talk about trauma, psychological, most of us here have gone through it. It is not fun when you are shouted down by members in this house and you don't call that psychological trauma. It does a great damage. Those of us who have lived long, you started going through psychological, being told you can't even go to school because you are a girl. That is cultural violence that we have gone through. And as I support this motion, I really urge, especially on number 3, that the council really gives a vote to sensitization on gender violence. Let's talk about it. Let's talk not only about the gender-based violence, the trauma of all of us, not just during elections. You know, even when we try to express ourselves, that there are people who cannot make a complete statement because they are worried. We have been brought up with this trauma that we can't express because you don't know what you are going to say. Somebody else will appreciate it. Let us not pretend. That trauma has caused some of us to just sit, even in an assembly like this one. I thank Honorable Shairoz, and I actually urge the Council of Ministers, because you are not any better. We have traumatized you. We have traumatized everybody. You can hear I am going through it now. That's a good example. I want to complete by saying this.
Honorable Mumbi, you may not declare the Council of Ministers traumatized unless confessed by them. Proceed.
Honorable Speaker, I thank you for your guidance. Let those things be said. They cannot say it. Just like from your seat you cannot say it. I am saying it for all of us. I am saying for all of us that we are traumatized. We are violated. We as women, as children, as society, through poverty, through political, through economics, we have been traumatized. And this is violence. Thank you, Honorable Shairos. Stand firm. I urge this House to support. You can hear.
Honorable Dr. Odette.
Thank you. Right Honorable Speaker, I stand to support the motion and sincerely thank Honorable Shairos for the good motions she's bringing in this House. She really contributes a lot to make the citizens and the people of East Africa and East African community people-centered. Right Honorable Speaker, I'd like to first of all thank all the members who came yesterday to participate to the workshop that was organized on sexual and reproductive health. And they contributed a lot to the bill to come on that matter of sexual and reproductive health, and I really thank you very much to have also given that time to members to come. Coming back to the motion, when I read the resolutions, they are mostly on domestic violence. And I'm in support of what the Minister of ESA Affairs from Uganda said, because domestic violence is everywhere in our communities, in our partner states. And when we talk of gender-based violence, we really all feel that it is about women, because women have been traumatized since years and since centuries. Today, when we talk of domestic violence, we include men, women, and children. And we all know how children are being traumatized in some households. So I would beg my friend, Honorable Shairos, to maybe, if we maintain the same resolutions which target the domestic violence, and domestic violence include all these, I would prefer that we just keep it as to address domestic violence in the region instead of GBV. Because if we now bring another motion on gender-based violence, will include what Honorable Mumbi is talking about, of all the trauma that some genders go through, even outside the households. So, Honorable Shairos, why don't we keep it as it was from the beginning, as domestic violence? Thank you very much to accept.
Honorable Rejema.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. And I have opportunity to thank the President of Uganda, the government of Uganda, and the people in the Uganda chapter for the warm hospitality we are getting till now. Right Honorable Speaker, concerning this motion, I am very supportive, and I want to thank Honorable Shairos Banji for bringing it. But, Right Honorable Speaker, I think this motion, if it would have come after the gender bill, it would have been very useful and they get more interpretation, because it has broad-based components that can be discussed fully. Concerning the gender violence, I think, Right Honourable Speaker, this is based first on gender inequality. And by this way, and I want to congratulate the government of Rwanda on the process of gender equality. Because I'm going to give you some examples which are flagrant of gender inequality, which are the basis of gender violence. Right Honourable Speaker, imagine in our region when we still have some restricted land ownership. It's normal that you can get some dispute and fight and violence. And I think the honorary state, Batono state, is now Rwanda, where in your title of land, you have the women and the men both equally signed. This is very special. And you have to encourage that every state, partner state, get really that kind of right. We have an example concerning professional obstacle, where there are some professions that cannot be exercised by women, for example. And this is again a source of dispute, and it comes also because there is not equal access to education. We still have some culture in our region where boys are encouraged to go to school, then girls. And this creates a cycle until we become adults. It's not only this. We have a certain discriminatory divorce right, according to some religions. And this also, it's a source of dispute, fights, and violence. Right Honourable Speaker, the freedom of marriage also, according to certain culture or religion, some women are obliged to be married, not getting really very consent. I'm saying this, Right Honourable Speaker. I know what I say. I'm now about to get 40 years of marriage, which means I know what it means. Secondly, I can insist on one point, lack of mobility. Some women are not free to go where they want to go if they don't get the consent of the husband. And there are some men who has even cars, and he cannot really drive the women. We still have to address the problem of gender equality. Right Honourable Speaker, again I thank Honourable Shai Rose Banji for bringing this motion. It's very important, but I wish that the bill of gender equality, which can even comprise some component of what he is saying. Thank you. I support this bill.
Thank you, Honourable Abisai, then Honourable Sarah, then Sebalo. Please, Honourable members, I said 3 minutes and I have capacity to switch you off from here.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this motion. I wanted to thank Honourable Shai Rose for bringing this important motion, especially at this time, and to emphasize that I agree with your amendment. Domestic violence has limitations. It is not broad. When you talk about gender-based violence, it brings the perspective of the violence to a magnitude that we want to address. Secondly, also to inform members that we do have, because I think I heard one member asking, do we have any information? We have very comprehensive country partner states reports on gender-based violence from the ministries of gender within the country and even from development partners who have helped. WHO, UN, USAID, we have very comprehensive reports on gender-based violence. And I encourage members to look at those reports because they talk about very fundamental issues that we need to address. 3, you might look at gender-based violence as something that is not of urgent importance, but it is critical. We have people dying every time from gender-based violence and you will not know. And that is both men and women. There are men who are thoroughly abused and they cannot speak because gender-based violence or domestic violence is hinged on culture, it's hinged on finance, it's hinged on alcohol and drug abuse. And so when any partner, either gender is on that level, it is very difficult. And unfortunately for us women, and I'll say this as a woman in very, as I conclude, many, our male counterparts have said many times that when it comes to first of all, when it comes to the aspect of culture, it is domineering and giving a lot of weight on the men. Now, when it comes to finance, because most women nowadays are very empowered, you find that the cases of gender-based violence are so much, and this you can go to the reports and you'll find out, are so much on especially on homes or on relationships that women are very economically empowered. So those are some of the things that you need to look at. And then on drug and alcohol abuse, I think either gender abuses that. And right now it is on the rise. And as long as this is on the rise, it is affecting us very badly. Finally, as I conclude, Right Honorable Speaker, the other day when we landed in Uganda and we got the new vision, I was shocked at the front, one of the inside, second page, that there is a very high rise of abuse. I think it's a place called Baduda or something like that, Bududa. And I even asked somebody about it. But the cases of domestic or gender-based violence in that region are so bad, just like they are in other partner states. Even in Kenya, we have the gender-based violence, which is, every time we have cases being reported, women being airlifted to come to hospital because they have, there's a case of a woman who was stabbed on the cheek and she had to be airlifted from wherever she was to come to Nairobi with the knife still in her cheek, stuck in it, and she was rescued by the Red Cross. That is to the extent. And a very recent one, 3 months ago, a young girl of about 25 years old, she was amputated, her lip was cut off because she is, the man said that the woman is not able to give birth, and yet when they did some background studies, they found out actually the person who had a problem was the man, but he beat up the woman and maimed her, and this is just what gender-based violence is. So I want to thank my colleague, Honorable Shairos, for bringing this. I'm glad that it is coming at a time that we are considering the gender bill. We have made mention of it within the gender bill. I'm glad that most of these bills have come when we've made mention of them within the gender bill, and I think it will just go far to address the very fundamental issues, and I support the motion.
Honorable Sarah, honorable members, you might know that this debate will be carried forward tomorrow when we are debating the gender bill. The boundary of the two debates are almost not there. And in the interest of time, 3 minutes, the rest will be carried forward.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And this being my first time to speak in the chamber, I would want to start by thanking the government, the parliament, and the people of Uganda for the hospitality we have enjoyed while we are here during this session, which happened also to be our last session. And I would really want to give my gratitude, especially to the President who made a great effort to come and address us, and as usual, share with us our wisdom. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would also want to start by thanking the mover of this very important motion, Honorable Shahi Rose Banji. And it's a very timely and important motion. And I would want to appreciate that the different countries have put different institutional and legal frameworks in place to take care of this particular need in our societies. But at regional level, we lack that important tool, which is very urgent and very, very important. In the Republic of Kenya, we have the Gender Bill, which has looked into the issue of gender-based violence, among others. And they have seen the need of protecting and caring for the victim, so they have shelters in place, both in the country and outside the country, depending on the gravity and the weight of the problem. Because family members who perpetuate this know so much about the victim, and they can pursue them because they also know their level of weakness and vulnerability. So there is a very high need for protection of victim. So we have had shelters in place. We also have a provision for legal and other support system, including healthcare facilitation for gender-based violence. And there is also the affirmative action that has been put in place that supports women access equal opportunity. And also, there is the need of the justice legal system where the legal services are provided to support the victims. So I think it's high time for ESC also to take it up seriously. And we, as a parliament, we need to harmonize the laws in the region. Honorable Nancy, I appreciate that she's moving the gender bill, which will also help us harmonize. And the ESC Council of Ministers should also come up urgently with the issues of policy and institutional framework to support these victims. Thank you very much.
Honorable Sibal.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I join colleagues in supporting this motion moved by Honorable Shahi Rose Banji. It is important and it is a very good initiative. I agree with the school of thought that we expand the horizon of this motion to go beyond the domestic. Domestic is very restrictive. It is within a restricted scope, but we need to look at the big picture. And to illustrate that, I want to give you a recent, very traumatizing story that is making rounds within the capital. Just this week, there is a very young girl, Enid Twijuche. She's been pursuing her bachelor's degree at the Makerere Business School, a second-year student in international business, just 23 years old. She was murdered in cold blood and her body dumped in one of the swamps in Namamve, and the decomposing body was got just a few days within this week, after the parents have been on a hunt looking out for their daughter for quite some time. And reason, according to her cosmate, was a relationship gone bad. The boyfriend executed that. Now we are having so many stories among the young people who, out of relationships that go bad, end up either murdering one another or engaging in cruel, very criminal and violent acts. Now this is just this week. So we have so many cases especially in high institutions of learning and many sections of our young people who can't manage frustrations and end up, engaging in violence. So when you restrict it to domestic, that particular story would not go within the purview of domestic. They were not married, they were not staying together, but it happened, and many such are happening. Now, Right Honorable Speaker, there is also this issue of the gender, because now the gender widens the scope to even bring in the suffering men who suffer quietly. I just want to give you a story in one of the churches. The pastor knew within his flock, there were quite a number of men who are really being harassed, violated, and terribly suffering, and he knew them. So one day he called on those men to stand up, and quite a number of them stood up. But there is one who didn't stand up, and yet it was common knowledge he's one of the victims. So when they asked, the pastor asked, "Why didn't you stand up?" The man answered, "She told me not to." So you could even see, the guy couldn't even stand to show that he's, because she winked and the guy could not. So these are the kind of stories that you have going on. Suffering majority, and these problems are there. Now, as I wind up, there are two aspects that we need to appreciate. The men apply the hardware in their violence. You know, the issues of beating and inflicting physical torture, and that is mainly the approach of the men. No wonder the victims who are women are known, because when you have a bruised face, it is easy to tell. But the women apply the software. Their techniques are more lethal in terms of inflicting pain, because things like poison, for them they can poison you, and no one will know that you've been put out of action. And then too, at times they even go to the extent of denying these fellows conjugal rights. And the man is in the home, but he's simply a moving object. So there are these problems, and we need to note them.
Thank you so much. Honorable, I know many members, Honorable Nakauchi, Honorable Taslima, and Honorable Mariam, you all want to speak, and Honorable Zain. But in the interest of time, I'll give you priority when we are debating the gender bill, because the debate are the same. In the interest of time. Honorable Shairos, please respond in 3 minutes. Honorable Dr. Ndairo. Okay, let him, he's the official second, and let me give you that. Just amendment. Proceed.
Mheshimiwa Speaker, I wanted to move two amendments. One is that this is a peace and security program, and I wanted to call upon the Council of Ministers to consider adding GBV under the EAC Peace and Security Act. Number two, I wanted to move an amendment calling partner states to put in place centers and specialized units where GBV is reported. Because the problem we have in the community is lack of information, lack of mechanisms to document and receive complaints of domestic violence. If that is done, for example, in every health facility or hospital, to put a specialized unit there to receive those complaints, and in every police station, that will help to document and report domestic violence and get solutions to them. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honorable. Let's not open debate. There are other aspects here of which is in that motion that the Honorable mover may have to consider. Aspect to say domestic violence, that there are no laws. Domestic violence is a criminal act. There are laws that deals with crime of that nature. So that will be amended in the motion to make sure that the text does not apply, looks as if there is no law in the partner state. That shall be corrected. Honorable Shairos, please. Briefly.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Speaker. Mheshimiwa Speaker, I brought this motion on gender-based violence to the attention of this House because I'm a strong subscriber of the human rights, not only for women, but also men. Mheshimiwa Speaker, under gender-based violence, we see that it is a violation of human rights. It goes against physical, emotional, psychological, and social welfare for women, men, children, and families. Mheshimiwa Speaker, it is very unfortunate that 26 years after the declaration of campaign in 1991, gender-based violence has not been completely eliminated. Every year in December, there are 16 days of activism against gender-based violence campaign, and yet this violence has not been completely abolished. Women do not report, women or men do not report to family members or relevant authorities for what they go through in their domestic houses. On top of that, the societies are not willing to interfere or even solve the problems on gender-based violence. Mheshimiwa Speaker, because time is not on our side, let me wind up my argument. Mheshimiwa Speaker, I wish to acknowledge and thank the Minister for Health, Women, Gender, Children, and Elderly in Tanzania, Mheshimiwa Umi Mwalimu, for her enduring support in the campaign in December 2016, because she did a very good job in this campaign and she attracted a lot of awareness to Tanzanians. Well done, Mheshimiwa Umi Mwalimu. Mheshimiwa Speaker, I also want to offer a special thanks and credit to my sister Leila Sheikh, who is an activist on gender issues in Tanzania, for producing elaborative articles every day on the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence campaign, which had immense impact on me coming up with this motion. Mheshimiwa Speaker, now let me take this opportunity to thank you and your office for your support. I also would like to take this opportunity to thank my colleagues for your valuable contributions and some recommendations. Mheshimiwa Speaker, allow me to thank Mheshimiwa Abubakar Ogle, Mheshimiwa Oda Kasingizwa, Mheshimiwa Buchumi Emerance, Mheshimiwa Mumbi Ngaru, Mheshimiwa Nderakindo Kesi, Mheshimiwa Dr. Odette Nyiramirimo, Mheshimiwa Celestine Rijema, Mheshimiwa Nancy Abisai, Mheshimiwa Sarah Bonaya, Mheshimiwa my brother Sentongo. Webalenyo. I would also like to recognize the minister from Uganda, Mheshimiwa Baganda. Thank you all for your contributions. Mheshimiwa Speaker, I received recommendations, various recommendations in writing I received from Mheshimiwa Oda. Mheshimiwa Oda, in her first recommendation, she recommended to amend the title to read motion for a resolution of the Assembly urging EAC partner states to comprehensively address gender-based violence in the region. Like my brother Mheshimiwa Sebalu suggested, there are two schools of thought on this, Mheshimiwa Speaker. Mheshimiwa Dr. Odette, she suggested, or rather recommended, that we should leave domestic violence. Mheshimiwa Speaker, I request this August House to agree with my amended proposal that we should retain the two. Gender-based violence, stroke domestic violence.
No, it doesn't happen.
Well, Honorable Shiros, when you talk about gender-based, the other one is encompassed.
Yes, and we have to be smart.
It is part of it, so.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Speaker, for your guidance. Therefore, I beg this House to agree on the recommendation that we leave gender-based violence because it cuts across. The ayes have it. Mheshimiwa Speaker, the second recommendation from Mheshimiwa Oda, she says we should urge the Council of Ministers to develop comprehensive policy and law on gender-based violence. For this, Mheshimiwa Oda, I request this House that we leave some of these recommendations for the bill which is going to appear in this House tomorrow, because as our Speaker said, we are going to have more time to debate on that bill. On the third recommendation from Mheshimiwa Oda, to involve boys and men in sensitization and campaigns against gender-based violence. For this, I fully agree with this recommendation. Mheshimiwa Speaker, Mheshimiwa Ndahiro also brought the following recommendations: to call upon partner states to put in place centers, units where actual acts of gender-based violence are reported. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa Ndahiro. This is very, very important recommendation. The second one is to call on the Council of Ministers to include gender-based violence under the EAC Peace and Security architecture. For this recommendation, Mheshimiwa Speaker, I also suggest that we leave it for today and we go.
It is the House.
I know it is the House decision, Mheshimiwa Speaker, but I request, since we are going to debate tomorrow on gender bill thoroughly, we should leave other recommendations during debate on the bill. I beg to submit, and I request once again this House to say yes to this motion. I beg to submit.
Honorable Buchumi had recommended also for implementation.
Yeah, I brought an amendment and I have submitted to the mover of the resolution.
My sincere apology, Mheshimiwa Speaker. I did not recognize Mheshimiwa Buchumi's recommendation, but what she recommended is already there on number 2. Thank you, Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Shairos. Honorable members, I think the debate on this matter, much as we may conclude with the motion as moved by Honorable Shairos, will re-emerge when we are considering the bill. So I would like to, the question before the Assembly is that this Assembly do resolve to urge the EAC partner state to comprehensively address the domestic violence in gender-based violence in the region as amended. May those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against nay. The ayes have it. Honorable members, before I adjourn, the members of General Purpose Committee, when we adjourn, maybe your chairperson would like to confer with you for a short time. Please, you'll remain behind to do that. And members who participated in the tug of war in Mombasa, you know you won yourself bronze. So the medals are around. Honorable Tasrima will give the medals out. On a very special note, I'd like to congratulate the participation of Honorable Dr. Ndairo.
Information, Chair. Could we record in this house that he was the captain of that team?
The participation, just not as a member, but as a captain of the tug of war. I really congratulate you upon that. Honorable members, tomorrow we will not sit in the morning. We'll be sitting in the afternoon, and it will be at 2:30. The office of the clerk also is ready with the diary for the year 2017. So I request that the distribution be made available, the diaries be made available to the members while they're in the chambers here. I thank you so much. House is adjourned to tomorrow, 2:30 p.m.
Actually, one resolution.